Naruto the Iceman of the Senju clan. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Team Victory. Puff puff boom. Boom. The evil slime was like an addict to spitting, and the sea surface near the explosion was filled with spray after spray. Although the waves stirred up were not as violent as before, they still made it impossible to stand normally. As a result, the four Narushikakus had to run back and forth on the sea to avoid the attacks of spit bombs. It's all boiled. Who the hell did you learn this from? No need to worry about vomiting or kidney failure. Spread out. It can only attack in one direction at a time. Narushikaku shouted to the students as he quickly approached the gunfire that attracted the slimes. Upon hearing this, Senju Mayuki and others immediately understood and immediately ran in the other three directions. Boom. Boom. I don't know if the shouting alerted it, but the next few shots of the evil slime were aimed at Narushikaku, and the saliva bombs kept exploding into the sky behind him. Whoosh whoosh. 3 kunai suddenly flew out in unison, hitting the slime chassis almost at the same time. However, what made Narushikaku frown was that the kunai only inserted a little more than halfway in and then stopped. Apparently most of the force was removed by the slime's silicone material. Scoff. 3 sparks flashed. Boom boom boom. The 3 detonating symbols were detonated almost at the same time, instantly blasting a huge gap in the slime's transparent body. Quan, who had just run to the side, saw that the fire attack was effective. His eyes lit up immediately. After he stabilized his body, he quickly formed a few seals with his hands. See Wei Shenhei Nunyan. Although I don't understand why Zaozenzuki Saizen shakes his head every time he sees himself practicing this ninjutsu, but he can't think about that at this time. Art fire escape. Ho fireball. Call. A slender pillar of chakra fire erupted from the young and delicate cherry mouth, and when it touched the body of the giant slime, it instantly exploded into a giant fireball several meters in diameter. Although he was still very small compared to his height of dozens of meters, the blazing high temperature still quickly evaporated a big hole in the opponent's body. The most important thing is that under the continuous burning of the fireball, not only the hole is getting bigger and bigger, but the speed of the slime's absorption and reorganization has also been significantly reduced. Effective. Good chance. Senju Mayuki and Hinata Toku on the other two sides didn't even need to communicate. At the same time, they wrapped several detonating charms they carried around their kunai and threw them out. Boom. Boom boom boom. It's not just that 1 + 1 is greater than 2. In the absence of water replenishment, even the effect of the detonating talisman seemed to be amplified a lot. This time, it almost emptied the waist of the evil slime. Damn it. You actually used fire to restrain my Yumabozu. On Ghost Island, Tenchi, who only dared to watch from a distance, became angry again. His eyes stared angrily at Izumi on the side of the evil slime, the master of Yumabo. What is the situation in Konoha village? Even children have such strong strength. But don't think that you will win just like this. I have made a lot of preparations for you. Malice flashed across his eyes, and then he formed seals with his hands and conveyed new information to Master Yumabo again. The saliva bombardment that lasted for several minutes suddenly stopped. Just when Narushikaku was alert to what other attacks the opponent would have, he saw the big guy suddenly turned his head and spat a mouthful of lavender saliva at Izumi. Quan. Be careful. Narushikaku immediately used his teleportation technique and rushed over with all his strength. Quan also noticed the attack from above and was about to use the teleportation technique to dodge, but suddenly he felt that his feet were unsteady and he fell to the water. The burning just now was too much, and the chakra was used too much. Spring. Hinata Takuma on the side also shouted anxiously when he saw this scene. Senju Mayuki opposite Izumi Station noticed it a little late. When he noticed it, he happened to see a giant lavender water ball above Izumi's head. There was a loud explosion above. Wow. A burst of water like a rainstorm covered the huge sea surface where the spring was. The area where it was touched is slightly numb. Narushikaku barely escaped the most intensive stage, but he was still splashed with a lot of water. I still feel a little dizzy after inhaling it. It should be a paralytic and hallucinogenic drug. Spring. Senju Mayuki's eyes turned red when he saw this scene, and he was about to pass by as soon as he moved. Calm. A trembling but firm hand suddenly grabbed his arm. "Let me go." In a rage, Senju Mayuki shook his hands and tried to break away, but when he saw that the other party's face was already pale and sweaty, he couldn't help but hold back his strength. "Shikaku-sensei has already passed. One more of you won't help." Hinata Takuma's voice was full of exhaustion, but he still explained at the fastest speed. "Now your mission is to crush this big guy's spiritual core before it recovers. Otherwise, everything Quan has done just now will be in vain when it recovers." Ice arrow. The anxiety is real, and what Hinata Takuma said is also true. Squeak. An ice arrow that was much larger than usual suddenly appeared in the clenched palm. "Not enough. The temperature is not cold enough. Continue. Count as much as you have. Pour it all into me." Such crazy and reckless input with all his strength caused Senju Mayuki's face to turn paler than Hyuga Takuma almost instantly, and the sweat on his forehead was dripping out in big drops. Location. These two words were almost squeezed out from between the teeth. Whoosh. A kunai flew out of Hinata Takuma's hand. "Go." The ice arrow carrying all the anger and mental power of Senju Mayuki pierced the giant slime's body almost at the same time as the kunai. Hit. Burst. Click. It's as if time has suddenly been accelerated countless times. The slime, which was squirming to reorganize its body, was instantly frozen into a giant ice sculpture with incomplete beauty. Wow. The giant ice sculpture leaned heavily on the sea, and the waves it raised caused the nearby water surface to undulate violently. Confirmed. There are no signs of life. After saying that, Hinata Takuma, who had long been exhausted, suddenly couldn't hold on any longer and fell to his knees on the sea, panting. Although Senju Mayuki's situation is not much different from his, although he was worried about Quan's condition, however, he still couldn't do such a thing as abandoning his teammates, so he had to go over and help Hinata Takuma up, and the two of them walked towards the boat that had been pushed far away by the waves. Although Narashikaku was also poisoned, he was still a jounin. He had successfully fished Izumi out and was now walking towards the ship. Fake. On Ghost World Island, Cheyenne's face was full of ferocity and panic when he saw this scene. Looking at the ice sculpture that kept undulating with the waves, he tried to form seals several times without believing in evil, but he didn't receive anything response. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Heizuyu Shenwei. The art of psychic." There was no reaction, not even the psychic spell appeared. Haha, it's a lie. Faith collapsed in an instant. As if all the strength in his body was suddenly taken away, he collapsed on the ground and was still muttering to himself. "My lord Yumibo is obviously the overlord of the sea. How could it be possible? How could it be possible for a few children to be so easily?" Chapter 52 picked up a sweet potato. Teacher Lucasa. "Well, what you just did was right." Narashikaku's expression was also not very good, but he still nodded to the two of them. When he saw Senju Mayuki staring at Izumi, he immediately said, "The poisonous water should be a paralyzing and hallucinogenic poison. I have just injected her with the prepared antidote. She should be fine after resting for a while. Roll your eyes." Although he was exhausted to the extreme, Hyuga Takuma still managed to hold on and carefully observed both Izumi and Narashikaku. After finishing, he fell down on the board with a plop. There is no sign of erosion of the internal organs. Teacher Shikaku's judgment must be correct. Only then did Senju Mayuki let out a long breath silently, then stepped forward and squatted beside Quan, placing his hands on top of her chest. This giant creature is obviously controlled by someone behind it. The boat was still there, but the oars had been washed away somewhere, and he was also in a bad state after being poisoned, so Narashikaku had no choice but to sit down. He looked at Giji Island, which was far away, and then looked at a few people on the boat, and finally moved his eyes to another small island not far away from Giji Island. Now it is basically certain that the problem of the Shenai incident lies on the Ghost World Island. However, our condition is not very good, so we should go to this island to rest for a while before making any plans. Shikaku-sensei is right. After using medical ninjutsu to confirm that Kwan's body was indeed fine, Senju Mayuki was finally relieved. Just looking at this ship, Izumi was poisoned and unconscious. Hinata Takuma and himself were both exhausted, and teacher Shikaku's condition was not very good either. Even if he is at full health, when all 3 students have remaining health, he must prioritize the safety of the students, but we have no oars. How can we get there? I looked at the surrounding sea with a blank expression. Not to mention the paddle, not even a single grass hair could be seen. Look at the small island a few kilometers away, and Mr. Shikaku looking at him with a little embarrassment on his face. Ugh, let me do it. What? How do you? Well, before Shikaku could ask, the boat suddenly moved, and then, under the control of Senju Mayuki, it slowly sailed towards the island. It's true. You don't need an oar to row a boat. My whole life depends on the waves. Dizziness, nausea. But no way, now I'm the only one left with useful labor, and this kind of speed can barely be tolerated. Looking at his face and frowning brows, Shikaku also knew that his student was persisting entirely with perseverance, so he wisely did not disturb him anymore, but focused on the surrounding sea. To guard against enemies who might take the opportunity to attack speechless all the way. The distance of a few kilometers seemed very far, but in fact the boat moved much faster, and the wind was not strong today. In just 10 minutes, the boat landed on a beach. Who? As soon as he stopped like this, Senju Mayuki couldn't hold on any longer. He fell backwards on the boat with a plop, breathing heavily. He felt not only that the boat was rocking, but also that his brain was shaking. Thomas was spinning in circles at an infinite degrees. Fortunately, the place where the boat ran aground was close enough to the shore, and although 10 minutes was not long, it was enough for Hinata Takuma to recover a little. There were not many things he could do. At least he could get off the boat and go ashore. Tap. Shikaku first carried Izumi to the shore and put him there. When he came back and wanted to hug Senju Mayuki, he saw that he had already stood up holding onto the side of the ship. It's okay, Shikaku-sensei, I'm okay. Although I stumbled a bit, I still managed to get down smoothly, and the chakra on my feet kept me steady. Seeing this, Shikaku Nara had no choice but to pull up the reins of the boat and pull it all the way to the beach. He found a tree and tied it to it to make sure that the boat would not be washed away by the waves. Shikaku-sensei, what should we do now? After Hinata Takuma landed ashore, he did not continue to sit and rest. Instead, he observed around the beach and found traces of human activities everywhere. Find a quiet and dry place first and wait until the two of them recover. Our current situation is too weak. Even if he knows that this island is the territory of the Kingdom of the Sea, Shikaku does not want to contact them at this time. First, meeting the client in this state will damage Konoha's image. Secondly, no one knows whether there are any bad guys from the enemy among the people in the Kingdom of the Sea. Okay, Shikaku-sensei. Although Hyuga Takuma didn't think about it as much as he thought, the psychology of not wanting to contact outsiders in this state is the same. Roll your eyes. There was a painful groan, but he still gritted his teeth and endured it. Now that almost everyone was still alive, only his Byakugan could find a suitable shelter as quickly as possible. It was a good thing that he had these eyes. Okay. Just as he turned his gaze, Hinata Takuma's expression changed, and he shouted softly, Shikaku-sensei, there's someone in the woods. He's coming towards us. When Shikaku heard the sound, he immediately took out his kunai and assumed a fighting posture. Even Senju Mayuki, who was lying on the ground for several times, hurriedly got up when he heard the sound and formed a triangle formation with the other two to protect Izumi middle. Ta-ta-ta. I don't know if the visitor had never thought of hiding or was already panicking. Accompanied by the rapid footsteps, he soon saw a little girl wearing lavender short sleeves running out while looking back. Child? Shikaku frowned and whispered, but did not relax his vigilance. With his 3 students as role models, he no longer believes in nonsense like children equals no danger. What? The little girl who rushed out obviously didn't expect to encounter ninjas here. She fell flat on the ground in panic. She looked at the direction she came from, and then looked at the few people who were waiting for her. The faces gradually filled with, wrong. Does this vest look so familiar? Then take a closer look at the other person's forehead protector. Cool. The little girl breathed a sigh of relief, struggled to stand up, and staggered towards the other party. I am. Are you Anko? Shikaku-sensei? Seeing Narashikaku suddenly put away his weapon, Hinata Takuma couldn't help but look at him in confusion. Senju Mayuki was stunned for a moment after hearing the word Anko, and then suddenly thought what in her heart, and quickly turned to look at the girl who was walking over. Put your weapons away. She is not an enemy. She is one of the 3 ninjas who is as famous as Tsunade-sama, a student of Lord Orochimaru. Yes. Regarding this sentence, Hyuga Takuma was a little surprised, just because of the opponent's identity as one of the 3 ninja students, but Senju Mayuki's focus was completely in another direction. Oh, don't tell me, my figure is a bit green, but these fishnet stockings are evil. When the other party walked up to him, even though his appearance was still a bit immature, Senju Mayuki immediately concluded that the small tablet in front of him was definitely the legendary Mitarashi Sweet Potato himself. Anko, aren't you on a mission with Lord Orochimaru? Why are you here? Lord Orochimaru. Falling down. Anko? Seeing this, Senju Mayuki hurriedly stepped forward and put her hand on Anko's chest. After using medical ninjutsu to explore for a while, she said to Narashikaku, "It seems that I have been mentally traumatized. Now I can't hold it any longer when I relax. It should be better if I rest more." Narashikaku nodded, looking at Anko who was still in a coma with pain and struggle on her face. Her expression gradually became more serious than ever before. The Kamigakure incident. Orochimaru is obsessed with various experiments. When these 2 factors appeared in the same place at the same time, he couldn't help but have some terrible associations. Chapter 53 Experience, Change, Growth. Konoha Village. Hokage office. A dark shadow flashed across the room, and suddenly a figure kneeling on one knee appeared in front of the 3rd generation desk who was reviewing the files. "Master Hokage, you are looking for me. Well, Kakashi, I have a task here that I need you to do right away." The 3rd Hokage nodded without hesitation and handed over the information at hand. Upon seeing this, Kakashi quickly stood up and took it. "A few days ago, I sent Shikaku's team to the Kingdom of the Sea to investigate the Kamine incident. This is the information Shikaku sent back with Ninja Eagle, saying that they met an unknown person while going to a small island called Onigashima to investigate. After a monster attack, I met Orochimaru's students on a nearby island." Having said this, the 3rd Hokage paused slightly. Although it was not explicitly stated in the letter, with Shikaku's wisdom, he would definitely doubt whether the local incident was related to Orochimaru. If it is really Orochimaru who is behind this incident, then it must be treated with more caution. The 3rd Hokage's face was very serious. "I now order you to immediately lead 2 Anbu teams to the Kingdom of the Sea at full speed, to meet up with Shikaku's team, and combine their intelligence to thoroughly investigate the matter." "Yes, Hokage-sama." Kakashi lowered his head to accept the order and was about to leave when he suddenly heard the faint voice of the 3rd Hokage coming from above his head. "Konoha Village has always been a peace-loving village. No matter who is involved behind this incident, we will take protecting ordinary people as a duty and resolutely fight to the end against the evil forces that kill people." Kakashi was silent for a moment, then bowed his head resolutely and accepted the order. "Yes." Swish. Kakashi left, but looking at the empty office, the 3rd Hokage no longer felt in the mood to continue working. He stood up and walked to the glass window, looking at the increasingly prosperous streets outside. Every time he felt restless, only the villagers with happy smiles could make his heart gradually calm down. "Orochimaru, I hope you haven't really taken that step. I will never allow anyone to smear Konoha's existence." Jiro Island. 3 days have passed since I picked up the red beans that day. No matter how Narashikaku asked why she appeared here, as well as the weirdness of Onigashima Island and the things about Orochimaru, Anko always scratched her head with pain on her face, unable to think of anything useful. Her memory must have been tampered with. We can only wait until Tsunade-sama returns to see if there is anything we can do. This was the case. After asking several times, even after a night's rest, Narashikaku finally had to make this judgment. Since almost all the people in the group were sick, After Hyuga Takuma used his Byakugan to search for a cave on a high ground not far from the shore, they spent most of their time in simple and in-depth studies. On the first day, they all took Binglianwen to satisfy hunger. Fortunately, Narashikaku's body was almost recovered the next day. He could use the transformation technique to go out and buy some cooked food to solve the problem of eating. Just because I still haven't figured out what happened to Anko, I decided to hide it temporarily after discussion and wait until I receive a reply from the third Hokage. Of course, in the meantime, Narashikaku went to meet with the person in charge of the Kingdom of the Sea as the team leader. The first is to carry out task docking. Secondly, it is also to report the general situation and show that we are investigating, lest the other party think that this side is passive and sabotaging, thus affecting Konoha's reputation. We understand. Fighting a monster like that is definitely not an easy task. If you need any help, please be sure to tell us, and we will do our best to cooperate. Probably because the battle that day was so noisy that many people on nearby islands saw it. Narashikaku just mentioned it, and the other party immediately said excitedly, the people of Konoha can handle it, and they will really come to the rescue if something happens. Ah. Swish. A white shadow flashed past, and the people in the cave were startled at first, but then relaxed immediately after seeing the person coming. Isn't Shikaku-sensei back yet? Hinata Takuma's expression looked a little tired. In the past 3 days, he would take time to touch the other end of Jero Island every day, observing the situation on Ghost World Island with his white eyes, hoping to collect as many clues as possible. Not yet. It was Anko who answered him. Although Quan had woken up the next day, the remaining poison in his body had not yet been cleansed, so he still rested most of the time. As for Senju Shinetsu, he seems to be in a daze. After recovering from that day, not right it should be said, that after entering this cave and settling down that day, he looked at the unconscious Quan and fell into a long silence. After he recovered, he began to enter a meditative state from time to time, or went out alone for a while. When he came back, he was basically exhausted to the extreme every time. And after coming back, he would not lie down and rest, but would continue to sit and meditate. After he was almost recovered, he would go out again, and so on. Several others couldn't even remember how many times he had gone out, and whether he had ever truly rested. Of course Narashikaku also knew about this. In fact, when he first discovered it, he had already followed him quietly, only to realize that his student was actually tempering his spirit and perseverance in an almost destructive way. Exclamation mark. Although it is good for students to be keen on training, it's just that this kind of exercise, which is almost self-mutilating, is really not a good choice for the underage Senju Mayuki. Again, he is still young now. In fact, he only needs to exercise step by step in accordance with the development of his body, and he can still grow beyond ordinary people. However, after one time he couldn't help but stop him, and seeing those tired but calm eyes, Narashikaku was silent for a while, and finally let him go. He saw it in these eyes, because of the battle a few days ago. In other words, from the moment I saw Quan injured, there have been some changes in this student's heart that even the teacher cannot detect. Towards the evening, Narashikaku finally came back. He had just shared the news he had collected outside with a few people when suddenly 2 birds chirped goo 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 from outside. The children didn't pay attention, but Narashikaku's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard it. He smiled and said come, and then immediately walked out of the cave and responded with goo goo twice. Then, in just a few breaths, several black shadows flashed past, and 6 ninjas wearing animal masks instantly appeared next to Narashikaku. I thought I would receive a reply from Hokage-sama, but I didn't expect you to be waiting looking at the Enbu member wearing a white cat face mask in front of him. Narashikaku certainly knew his actual identity, but he still knew that Enbu personnel and tasks needed to be kept secret. According to Hokage-sama's order, the task of the Kamigakure incident will be taken over by Enbu from now on, and Shikaku's team will return to the village immediately. The leader of the team, Shirogane, was of course Kakashi. After using an official tone to inform Narashikaku of the third Hokage, his voice suddenly softened. However, considering the physical condition of several of you, Hokage-sama specifically proposed that you, seniors, can slow down on the road and there is no need to rush. Narashikaku did not answer immediately after hearing this, but looked back at the cave. His own was nothing. In fact, from the moment he recognized Han Dao's identity, he already had a premonition that the result would be like this. The only thing I worry about is that, if someone else takes over the task in the middle of the task, will my students have a strong psychological gap as a result? Okay, I see. Life is never smooth sailing all the time. Frustration and unwillingness are also part of growth, aren't they? Children, if you don't want to experience this feeling of powerlessness in the future, then train harder. Chapter 54 The Perfect Ending. Konoha Cure Hospital, a special clinic for difficult and complicated diseases. The room was very empty, with only one chair placed in the middle. Anko was sitting on it, watching several medical ninjas write twisted and twisted spells on the ground, centered around the chair. The technique is completed. With enough manpower, the medical ninjas quickly completed the arrangement of the techniques. Tsunade-sama, Hokage-sama. Tsunade nodded, and the third Hokage smiled, and said to them, "Thank you for your hard work. Go down and have a rest." "Yes, Hokage-sama." Several medical ninjas quickly packed up their things, bowed slightly to the two people at the door and said, "Then, my subordinates and others will go out first." Crack, the door closed behind him, and Tsunade and the third Hokage also stepped forward and walked to Anko. "Don't be nervous. These spells have the effect of calming and concentrating the mind, and will not hurt you." After briefly comforting Anko, who suddenly became a little nervous, Tsunade looked at the only medical ninja left in the corner of the room. "Let's start." "Yes, Tsunade-sama." The medical ninja who stayed behind was obviously an experienced veteran. After receiving the order, he immediately walked to Anko and squatted down on one knee. Then he quickly made several mudras with his hands. "Drink." With a soft drink, the technique on the ground suddenly glowed with a faint green light and quickly gathered from the outermost periphery to the middle like a marquee, and finally converged to a small circle with chairs in the middle. The light was also brighter than at the beginning. Much richer. "Drink." The medical ninja drank softly again, but this time, one hand was not printed, and the rich green light immediately began to dissipate into Anko's body. Soon, Anko's expression, which was originally a little nervous, gradually calmed down. Upon seeing this, Tsunade immediately said several keywords one after another. "The Kingdom of the Sea. Onige Island. Orochimaru. Jiro Island." However, what made her heart sink was that the first word was nothing. When Onige Island was mentioned, Anko's face suddenly showed strong uneasiness. When she said Orochimaru and Jiro Island, he suddenly hugged his shoulders and shouted in pain, "It hurts. It hurts so much. It's so dark. It's so cold." Seeing her reaction, Tsunade immediately frowned, and the third Hokage's expression became even more serious and deep. Fortunately, the techniques all over the floor were still effective. The medical ninja immediately increased the output of chakra, and more green light began to gather into Anko's body. "Calm down. Think slowly. Don't rush." As a spellcaster, the medical ninja's voice seemed to possess a special kind of magic power, which was clearly transmitted into the depths of Anko's spirit, causing her emotions to gradually calm down again. "Master Tsunade." The medical ninja nodded to Tsunade in time, indicating that he could try again. However, looking at that face, that was obviously still childish, hesitated a little. "Tsunade." The third Hokage's voice was very serious, and he just called his name without saying anything more. He believed that his apprentice could understand the seriousness of the matter. "I see." Sure enough, although she acted very impatient, after gritting her teeth, Tsunade still took a step forward, put her hand on Anko's head, and then gently input chakra. "Jiro Island. Orochimaru." With her participation, Anko's reaction this time was not as violent as before, but when she heard Orochimaru's name, she still grabbed her head suddenly, her face full of pain and fear. "No, I still can't remember. I should know it obviously. But every time I try to recall that name, I always feel so cold, so dark, so painful." Seeing her shivering, while pressing the mark on her left neck, the medical ninja finally shook her head slightly at Tsunade and the third Hokage. "The implication is so strong that I'm afraid her memory of an event and place has been completely erased." Tsunade naturally knew this conclusion well. When the third Hokage heard this, the heaviness on his face gradually melted away. Then he stepped forward and held Anko's shoulders. When she looked over, he smiled and said to her, "Don't think about it anymore. You've already worked hard." Seeing Anko's eyes filled with tears and looking a little overwhelmed, the smile on the third Hokage's face couldn't help but become stronger. "Don't be afraid. The top priority now is to cure this curse mark that is torturing you." It was obvious that her memory was related to very serious matters, but Hokage-sama comforted her so gently. Anko, who was feeling helpless in her heart, couldn't help crying with guilt and emotion. "Hokage-sama, okay, it's okay." The third Hokage gave a few words of comfort again. "Let Tsunade seal the mark on your shoulder later. Even if this matter is over, you will still be an outstanding ninja in the village from now on. Don't let it affect your mood, okay?" "Okay." Anko nodded heavily and said yeah, while wiping her tears. "Hehe." The third Hokage stood up with a smile, said to Tsunade, "I'll leave the rest to you," and then turned and left. In the clinic, it wasn't until the old man disappeared that Tsunade said to the medical ninja again, "Call a few more people in. I can feel that there is Orochimaru's chakra in this mark. Maybe I can try it with the evil sealing seal." "Yes, Tsunade-sama." The medical ninja immediately went out to call people. In the room, looking at Anko, who was covering the mark with one hand in a daze, Tsunade felt that the irritability in her heart could not subside for a long time. That guy Orochimaru, what on earth is he thinking about right now? "Hello, Hokage-sama." 3 generations of adults. "Lord Hokage." "Hehe, everyone is very energetic. Thank you for your hard work. It's not hard. This is what we should do." Walking downstairs and walking in the corridor of the hospital, everyone who sees the third Hokage will greet him excitedly. Even if the other person does not remember his small role, as long as he can see his smile, he will be satisfied. Hehe. The third Hokage greeted everyone familiarly, RN, and his kind smile blew everyone around him like a breeze, making everyone feel the kindness from the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, it's Nonoyu." The third Hokage smiled and nodded, gesturing for the other party to follow him. The people around him immediately knew what was interesting and stopped coming over. "How's it going? Is Zero Zenai's condition better?" After returning yesterday, Naruto mentioned Senju Mayuki's state in the past few days in his report and expressed concern about it. It is a good thing to work hard, but he is worried that this student will go to the extreme of believing in strength. The third Hokage certainly attaches great importance to this. Although Senju Mayuki's performance shows that the relationship between the two children has reached a certain level, what he needs is an heir who can support the sunny side of Konoha village, not like Uchiha Madara at the beginning. Power can solve everything, madman. So after discussing with Naruto, the two unanimously decided to entrust this matter to Nonao. For the sentimental Senju Mayuki, Nonoyu, who was the first to treat him as a family member, may be the person with the greatest influence on him in the entire village. This may not be comparable to Tsunade from the same clan superior. "Well, I was just going to report to you, Hokage-sama." The smile on Nonao's face made the third Hokage feel a little more at ease. "I talked to Zero Zenai yesterday, and he did talk to me a lot, but most of them were blaming himself for being too playful and not paying enough attention during training, which led to Kwan's injury." The third Hokage nodded, indicating that he was listening. "But Zero Zenai also told me that he is just trying to make up for the training he missed before, so that we don't have to worry about him. He also said that Zero-Kwan obviously admires him so much. If he allows her to be in his room next time, if he is injured in front of him, then he will lose any dignity as a man." Speaking of this, Nonoyu obviously couldn't help but want to laugh, but he could only hold it back because the Hokage was around. Hehe. The children nowadays are really big as little people. If you also know how to take care of your face in front of the little girl, then there should really be no problem. "Okay, I'm relieved to know that little Zenai is fine. You can go and do your work." "Yes." Nonoyu bowed slightly and left. The third Hokage looked at her back and then walked out of the hospital door with his head held high. He felt that the irritability accumulated in the past few days was suddenly completely cleared away, and his whole body felt relaxed. Little May's incident has a good outcome, and the incident in the Kingdom of the Sea has a perfect ending under the Anbu's handling. There is indeed a research institute on Giji Island that conducts human experiments, but the person in charge is a local named Chiansi. When the research institute was cleared, the person in charge, Tenchi, refused to surrender and resisted. In the end, he was hit by a large ninjutsu during a battle with Anbu members, and his body was completely gone. Perhaps this ending is not perfect, but for Konoha village, this ending is the most appropriate. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. The Chunin exam is coming. Power Prelude. Tata Dadrink. The Big Whirlwind of Konoha. Papa Tappa Panoba Gang Force Whirlwind. Boom. A strong roundhouse kick hits Senju Mayuki's body hard, causing him to fly far away like a bullet. Boom. Crackling cough, cough, cough. This Diomao said he wanted to compete seriously, but he was really not polite at all. Fortunately, the moment he was kicked, he immediately put on a layer of ice armor, otherwise he would have to stay in the hospital for a few days. Yo. Brother Zenyu. Hey, your efforts have won my recognition again. Now I have to use all my strength to defeat you. Awesome. This feeling of letting your youth flow freely is really great. Come. Let us take advantage of this passion, and continue fighting for 500 rounds. No. I refuse. Why? Young boys should spend more time sweating and youth, right? You still have the nerve. You still have the nerve to say it. Why the hell are you talking about? It was obviously agreed from the beginning that this was a discussion. It's a competition. That kick of yours was really satisfying. But look at the broken ice shards scattered on the ground. It was a huge fireball without any melted ice armor. TMD. Which teacher taught me this stupid thing in the first place? Isn't this guy's text understanding never passed the test? Cough cough cough. Rubbing his stomach, which was still aching, and ignoring Kei, who was climbing up and down next to him and yelling, only wanting to persuade him to play a few more games, he walked to a half-broken stone and sat down. Not far away, Izumi and Hyuga Takuma were conducting their own training. After handing over to Anbu that day, I set out on my return trip early the next morning. It just took 2 days longer to come back than when I went there. I heard teacher Shikaku said that the Third Hokage specifically approved it considering his illness. After returning, after Tsunade's inspection, it was finally confirmed that the poison in Izumi and Nera Shikaku's bodies had been removed. After that, I still have to rest for a few days as usual. After that, it returned to the previous stage of daily routine. Every day, I just looked for cats and dogs, cleaned for a living, or weeded and watered the fields for farmers. After this mission to the Kingdom of the Sea, the 3 students in class have actually gained different insights and growth. Needless to say, Senju Mayuki, Izumi's injury was like a basin of cold water, directly waking him up from his comfortable environment and laziness, causing his mentality to undergo a change that could almost be called a polar reversal. Kwan has also seen his changes and actions in these days. She was also very anxious. I'm even more upset that it is all because of my own weakness that made Zio Zenyu become like this. But for a little girl who is just 7 or 8 years old, no matter how precocious her mind is, she really doesn't know how to deal with such complex psychology and emotions. So in the end I can only attribute all the problems to myself, bury all the regrets and annoyances deeply in my heart, and tell myself that I must work harder, become stronger, stronger, stronger. I will never allow myself to cause such trouble to little Zenyu again in the future. As for Hyuga Takuma, although the young man did not have such complicated twists and turns between the two of them as teammates, Izumi's injury and Senju Mayetsu's transformation really touched his heart. Let him feel it more deeply. It turns out that this is the bond between teammates. It turns out that, in order to protect friends, people can really become something they have never been before. So he also changed after coming back this time. Not to mention that he is as extreme as Senju Shinetsu, but at least he is much more serious about practicing and improving himself than before. Not only did he take the initiative to find the soft boxing masters in the Hyuga clan for advice, but he also specially joined his teammates' physical strength training team, because I heard Senju Mayuki and Shikaku Sensei discussing before whether the Hyuga clan majors in Byakugan or Raukan, the focus is actually on chakra. For ordinary people, what can most directly affect the speed and quality of chakra refining is physical strength and the tenacity and perseverance tempered in the process of constantly breaking through oneself. Therefore, seeing such a young man from the Hyuga family with thick eyebrows and big eyes, who has always been calm towards others, he was so tired that he stuck out his tongue and kept panting like a fool, but he still kept running. That scene is really unbearable. I said little brother. Little brother's NIU. I don't know. When K turned into a one-handed thumbstand again, he was still doing ups and downs while persuading him, "You are so young. You shouldn't be sitting around like those old men all the time. Can you stand up? Get up and fight me again just once." Okay, not good. Looking at the sunset that was about to set, after saying hello to Izumi and Hinata Takuma, Senju Mayuki got up and walked outside the training ground. It's almost time. After dinner, I have to go to Tsunade's house to study. How can I have time to accompany this idiot? Missions, training, and training in medical ninjutsu. Except for the occasional moment when I just couldn't stand it anymore and was given a passionate and double beating by K. Almost every day was the same until one day when I came back from watering the fields for a fellow villager. I saw a few people on the street who were dressed in a way that was obviously different from the Fire Nation style. That forehead protector is a ninja from Tsunade village. Senju Mayuki was surprised. Even if they are nominal allies, walking around the streets of Konoha village so arrogantly is a bit too high profile, right? Tsunade village, why are they here? And they basically look like children. After hearing this, Izumi and Hyuga Takuma looked over in surprise. Looking around again, it turned out that many passing villagers also showed great curiosity about these ninjas from other villages. On the contrary, the ninjas from Tsunade behaved more naturally. Faced with so many strange looks, he still didn't show any shyness at all. He talked and smiled as usual. Occasionally when passing by a stall of exquisite jewelry, a few girls would gather around and have a chattering discussion. What? It wasn't until he saw them walking past that Narashikaku seemed to suddenly remembered something and slapped his head. It turns out that we have already reached this point. What? Several people looked over in confusion, and Kwan even asked frankly, "Shikaku sensei, what do you mean by times like this?" Should I tell you, that thing Narashikaku scratched his head in distress, looking a little tangled for adults, 21 children. Senju Mayuki looked thoughtfully at the backs of the Tsunade ninjas. Today is June, 6th Street. Is it the Chunin exam? Chunin exam. Izumi's voice suddenly rose 3 major keys, and even the Hyuga boy's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard it. Sure enough, I still can't hide it from you. Narashikaku couldn't help but smile bitterly, just by seeing the ninjas from other villages in the village, and at most adding one of your own words. You can guess the answer immediately. This kid, do I really have the space and need to continue teaching him? Wow, a high-pitched eagle cry flew over the entire Konoha village. Looking up at the messenger eagle that circled a few times and then flew into the distance, and then at the students, who suddenly became more energetic because of the topic of Chunin examination. Narashikaku suddenly felt a feeling in his heart. Why not thoughts? Yes, although the time is still a little short, but with the strength and brains of the 3 of them, success or failure is a kind of experience and growth, isn't it? Youth is their greatest asset. Chapter 56. Uchiha is miserable. Hoo-ha, ha. Itachi's breath was filled with energy. Zissou on the other side looked at him, sweat dripping down his face. I can really concentrate when I practice with you. Here Itachi was recovering his breathing quickly. Looking at such a cheerful friend, he felt very fulfilled physically and mentally. Different from before, the training between the two has advanced from running together to sparring practice. And they agreed that apart from not being able to use the Sharingan, everything else would be like a real battle, and they could do anything. Because Itachi still hasn't experienced what the Sharingan feels like. In short, there were constant physical collisions between 2 half-grown boys. Very passionate, very intense. After each time the winner was decided, they would take a break for a few minutes, and they had played 15 games so far. The record is 3-12, Itachi 3, Shisu 12. Dang dang dang, the two of them fired an unknown number of shurikens at the same time, which collided with each other in midair, and then bounced off to unknown places. They don't care where the shuriken will fly to in the end. At this time, they only have each other in their eyes. TSK. Drink. Two bodies covered in hot sweat collided and attacked each other in midair, and finally fell into a ball, and fell heavily to the ground. Call. What? To heavy and violent breathing sounds mixed together, Shisu took the lead in rearranging his stance, and kicked Itachi, who was squatting on the ground with one knee. Itachi immediately stretched out his right hand to defend. However, in his vision, that was shaken by the impact of the kick. Itachi saw his friend forming seals quickly. Art fire escape ho fireball. A huge fireball erupted from Shisu's mouth. Seeing the fireball flying towards him, Itachi's lips showed a smile, as expected of Shisu. He was in a very happy mood. In Itachi's memory, probably only his father or Shisu in the entire clan could release such a huge fireball. Thinking of this, Itachi couldn't help but feel a little proud. It's just that facing such a huge fireball, it's too late to fight back, and it's too late to defend. Boom. The fireball hit directly. Weasel. Shisu yelled eagerly, as if he didn't expect the situation to turn out like this. However, what he didn't expect was that Itachi, who was hit by the fireball, suddenly split into countless pieces, and then turned into a large group of crows, screaming and rushing towards him. It turned out to be a substitute technique. Shisu couldn't help but feel funny about his worries just now also. Although Itachi is small, his strength is not weak at all. How could he be hit by his own powerful fireball so easily? When Shisu noticed Itachi's aura, a kune was already on his neck. The winner has been decided, Shisu whispered reluctantly. In the end, they practiced a total of 35 games. The result was Itachi had 8 wins and Shisu had 27 wins. Your strength has surpassed that of ordinary genin. Shisu drank all the water in the kettle and said to Itachi, it just so happens that the Chunin exam teams from each village have almost arrived in the past few days. How about it? Are you confident in facing those guys you have never seen before? Itachi was silent for a moment, then raised the kettle and took the cold water in his mouth. I'm not participating this year. Zisu's face was full of surprise. With your strength at this level, why don't you participate? You know, that little girl from Aunt Yu's house has been very nervous these days. Undoubtedly, the little girl Shisu mentioned was referring to Izumi, because like Itachi, he graduated early at the age of 7. Izumi is now very popular in the Uchiha clan, even because he has completed 2 difficult missions. His reputation still seems to be overshadowing Itachi's. The teacher who leads our team said that the other 2 are not strong enough to take the Chunin exam, and the qualifications for the Chunin exam must be in groups of 3. In fact, after knowing that he would not be able to participate in this year's Chunin exam, even Itachi, who had always been calm, couldn't help but run to find the leading teacher. However, in the face of his inquiry, Minazuki Yuki, who usually didn't respond to anything others said, took a tough attitude this time, and refused to listen to his explanation at all. He just stated categorically that he would definitely not be allowed to do so this year. Join. Although I was holding back my anger, there was nothing I could do about it. The rules of the Chunin exam were like this. If I didn't lead a team of Jounin to recommend myself, no matter how strong I was, it would be in vain. Itachi had no choice but to give up. Even if you don't take the Chunin exam, as long as the senior management pays attention to the performance of the second class, you can clearly see how much you contribute to the team. The higher-ups will definitely come looking for me. Itachi told himself so confidently. Then I turned around and heard that Guan, who was in the same period, had successfully signed up. If possible, Itachi would probably grab the leading teacher by the collar and greet him with Marifak. Look at other people's teachers, and then look at you. Your leading Jonin is Minazuki Yuki? Itachi nodded silently. Isn't he jealous? Your ability is too strong and arouses his suspicion, so he doesn't recommend you to take the Chunin exam. It's useless even to think so. Itachi shook his head. Although he was really unhappy, he had already stated his position like that, and it would be useless to think about it now. It would only make him more unwilling. By the way, is there any progress between you and that little girl? Shisu changed the subject forcibly, and Itachi immediately looked at him with wide eyes. Seeing him like this, Shisu's face suddenly showed a somewhat proud smile. Haha, it's usually hard to tell what you're thinking, but at times like this, it's surprisingly easy to understand what do you mean by that. You'd better look in the mirror and see your expression. After Shisu finished speaking, he smiled like a child who had succeeded in playing a prank, which stung Itachi so much that he had to look away. I don't have any particular thoughts about her. Is it? Shisu's expression became even more evil, but I clearly didn't mention you by name, so you had such a big reaction. Itachi simply stopped talking. Reaction? Do I care about her that much? Itachi couldn't help but ask himself this. To be honest, as an equally outstanding peer, Quan is indeed one of the few friends I have. Itachi originally thought that was all, but when Shisu asked him this question, he felt that it was more than just that. But despite this, thinking that that girl will take the Chunin exam in a few days, and I will most likely become a mere genin behind her after a while. Let's not talk about this for now. How is your father's condition? You are changing the subject. Zisu showed a smile that said, don't explain, I've already seen through you. But soon, thinking of his father, his smile gradually turned into a haze. He is still the same, but he has become weaker and weaker recently, and he is almost unrecognizable to me. Shisu's father lost a leg in the previous battle, and has been bedridden since then. There is still no sign of improvement, let alone getting out of bed. And Shisu's family only has him and his parents, and now he relies on him to work alone to support the family. Is that so? It doesn't matter, human beings will die anyway, and I'm ready to wake up. Seeing his friend suddenly holding such tragic determination, Itachi was speechless for a moment, and didn't know what to say. Mainly, weren't we still having a passionate doubles sparring just now? Why did it suddenly turn into a misfortune competition? Chapter 57. Such a big man can't even put on clothes. It seems that there are only 3 of us new people taking this exam. Not surprisingly, the Chunin examination is still scheduled for July 7th. We arrived at the ninja school playground to gather at the notified time. The place was already filled with genin teams from various countries, and depending on the village, they formed separate small groups. The participating forces are basically dominated by Konoha and Tsunade, who are both allies. The team in Konoha was the largest and bustling, with at least 5 or 60 people. Sand Ninja Village is second, with more than 20 or 30 people including the teachers leading the team. Except for these 2 largest groups, most of the others are some small ninja villages that symbolically sent 1 or 2 teams to join in the fun. The Iwagakure village had just ceased war with Konoha not long ago, and it was currently at war with the Tsunade village. Sending people to participate now was not an obvious sacrifice. Kumogakure village is also in a heated fight with Konoha village, and there is no possibility of participating. As for Kirigakure village, they are currently in the mood for seclusion, so they have no time. And to be honest, with their perverted policy of blood mist, no one in other villages would be willing to take him to play. In addition to the 5 major villages, most of the other small villages also knew that Konoha village only send out invitations for the sake of appearance, and they didn't care at all whether they came or not. But people don't think so. It's a little too small, but we are also a regular military organization, so in order to save face, most of them will send 3 or 2 small teams over symbolically. But judging from the fact that almost none of them are equipped with medical ninjas, I don't know whether they trust Konoha village to do the logistics work well, or whether they simply regard this exam as a special public trip. After observing the team of their own village, Izumi and Hyuga Takuma both confirmed that the only newcomers taking this exam were the 3 youngest. Haha, there are still so many people in Konoha village as always in Tsunade village. Several leading teachers surrounded by students looked at the size of the crowd on the playground and couldn't help but laugh a few words. After all, we are the host. Even if we force ourselves together, we can't lose out in terms of numbers. Haha, no matter how many people there are, what's the use? The Chunin exam is not a competition between primary school students shouting come on. Whoever has more people will have the advantage. Who says it's not? They even sent out children like that. I really don't understand what the point of them doing this is. Are they doing it for themselves? Hahaha. Although the Jonin who led the team reminded him several times not to do something rude in the allied village on the way here, but now that he heard the teacher say this, the Genin students next to him suddenly looked in the direction of Konoha village and smiled stand up, especially when looking at the three children who were specially mentioned by the teachers. Their eyes were full of unabashed superiority and malice. I really envy the guys who will meet the three of them during the exam. Isn't that equivalent to a direct by guilt of bullying a kid? Please, this is the Chunin exam, not a child's playhouse. Okay, don't say such rude words again. The young woman who had been standing silently in the middle of the sand ninja suddenly scolded softly. We are now in a village of an allied country. Aren't you afraid of affecting the relationship between the two villages by ridiculing us so unscrupulously? Although she seemed to be the youngest among the adults, as soon as she opened her mouth, all the sand ninjas immediately shut their mouths. She obviously had a high prestige among them. What's that? It's just a joke. No need to be so serious. Lord Yikang. Being scolded by a guy who was much younger than him in this situation, one or two of the teachers still retorted. Yikang glanced at the teacher who was speaking, but did not say anything more to him. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the candidates beside him. Looking at your behavior just now, have you already regarded the three children in Konoha as the ones who are best to bully? When she asked her so bluntly, all the candidates were a little embarrassed and did not dare to speak. Yikang then looked at the girl next to him. What about you, Maki? Do you think so too? Teacher, Maki was a cute looking girl with lavender paint on her cheeks. When the teacher asked her by name, she didn't dare to pretend to be deaf and dumb, so she nodded and replied, although I don't know why Konoha village asked them to take the exam, but they are so young, and they cannot have more missions and more experience than us, so you just take it for granted that they are easy to bully? In fact, there is no need to wait for an answer. It can be clearly seen from the expression on Maki's face that this is exactly what she thinks. What about you? While asking this question, Yikang glanced at all the candidates. However, although no one answered, the meaning on their faces was already obvious. We are all teenagers, young boys and girls. Faced with three children who are obviously half a year younger, how can we put them on the same level and consider them? Yikang sighed softly and did not get angry. He just calmed down his tone and motioned the candidates to look at the adult next to the three children. You should all know the Inoshika butterfly of Konohagakure, right? That person's name is Narushikaku, and he is a member of the Nera family who is particularly famous for his flexible mind and superior IQ among the Inoshika butterfly. Do you think such a man would send his students to the Chunin examination hall without being sure? Not to mention that according to our intelligence, the three students in this team are from the Senju, Uchiha and Hyuga clans. I don't need to say more about what these three clans mean to Konoha village, right? As soon as these words came out, all the candidates had a look of shock on their faces, and even the teachers who had taken the lead in mocking them all became serious. Team member Senju, Uchiha, Hinata, Captain Narushikaku. What kind of magical configuration is this? Exclamation mark. When they looked back at this moment, everyone's eyes no longer had the same ridicule and ease. You must keep in mind that when things go awry, there will be something strange once such a team grows up. It will definitely become a senin in another sense. Looking at the three children not far away, Yikang couldn't help but have a hint of solemnity in his eyes. However, when he saw a child on the other side who happened to be looking at him, he still nodded to him out of politeness, and then made a summary to the candidates around him. I think that not only will the three of them not be weak, they may even become your strongest opponents in this exam. On Konoha's side, while the Suna ninjas were commenting here, Senju Mayuki was also observing each other, or in other words, the focus was almost entirely on that woman. The face is beautiful, the eyes are clear, the figure is tall, and the appearance is great. If this alone doesn't explain anything. The main thing is, what on earth did Tsunagakure teach? Even though he is such a big man, he can still wear his clothes inside out. Sure enough, this woman should be. Oh, her Narushikaku seemed to notice his gaze, so he explained aloud. The burning release Yikang of Sand Ninja Village is also a bloodstained ability user like Zenryu. I heard that she has been very active in the battle with Iwagakure recently and has made several great achievements. Therefore, although she is still very young, she has become the idol of many young people in Sand Ninja Village. Perhaps it is because of her popularity that Sand Ninja Village will send her to lead the team this time. Chapter 58. I'm doing this all for your own good. Welcome to all candidates and teachers. I'm the third Hokage of Konoha Village, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Fortunately, we knew that this was an exam jointly organized by multiple villages, so as the host, Konoha did not keep everyone waiting. As soon as we arrived at 9 o'clock, we saw the third Hokage appearing on the podium. Thank you for your hard work. Everyone from various countries came here. The purpose of jointly organizing the Chunin examination is to improve. The second is to enhance friendship between each other. Finally, I hope everyone can perform steadily in the exam and successfully achieve excellent results. Did the old man suddenly change his gender? This time it ended in 2 or 3 minutes. Not only Senju Mayuki and the other candidates, but also the faces of the surrounding Konoha Jounin showed a trace of disbelief. This feeling is just like seeing Tang Monk, who cherished words like gold after the supreme treasure was reincarnated. At this moment, countless Konoha ninjas who had experienced the Dark Ages couldn't help but shed painful tears in their hearts. If only you had been like this earlier, my old baby. Now candidates can enter the examination room with their registration forms and find their seats according to the number. A Chunin replaced the third Hokage, who left immediately after speaking, and briefly explained a few rules of the exam. The test papers for the first exam will be distributed on time at 9:30. All candidates who have not yet taken their seats will be disqualified from the team exam. It is now around 9:09, and there is still almost half an hour before, but when they heard that the entire team would be disqualified because of one person's mistake, many candidates still let out various strange noise. Of course, there are also some people who have a bad mentality and immediately rush forward from the crowd. They don't look back when they bump into people. It doesn't matter if they are scolded. In their eyes, they just sit in the examination room for the first time. Only then can you calm down that uneasy feeling. Okay, you guys can go into looking at this chaotic scene. Narashikaku couldn't help but scratch his head. Although I can't say anything too extreme to you, I believe in your strength. You just need to believe in yourself and perform normally. Yes, Teacher Shikaku. X3. Having said that, the three of them did not crowd forward like those people, but slowly walked forward with the crowd. There's still about half an hour left, and we can even climb there. I really don't know what those people are anxious about. Teacher, let's go in then. Well, remember what I said, you must have a calm mind. Do you understand? Yes. Master Yakira/Teacher. XN. Senju Mayuki raised his head in surprise when he heard the sound, only to realize that the three of them had been squeezed near the Tsunin ninja candidates without knowing it. As if he felt the gaze from the side, Yi Kang also turned his head and looked over, only to find that the child who looked at him just now was looking at him with a look that was difficult to understand. Although he didn't know what the other person's eyes meant, all the candidates were entering the teaching building at this time. In order not to delay the students from the allied countries, Yi Kang nodded to him in a friendly way and then stepped aside one time. However, just when she thought nothing happened and wanted to leave, Senju Mayuki suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of her. Looking at this little guy, Yi Kang's delicate face couldn't help but reveal a puzzled expression. Wow, from this angle, I can barely see my face, it's so big. I don't know if Tsunade village is rich in any specific specialties, although he was thinking about some messy but very refreshing things in his mind. Senju Zenryu's movements on his hands did not pause at all. He suddenly stretched out his right paw towards Yi Kang and seemed to be very spontaneous. He introduced himself like a familiar person, Senju Shine. Yi Kang was really confused this time. Brother, if you want to take a girl, why don't you first check what occasion and time it is? But his hand was already stretched out, and Yi Kang, who always had a better personality in ordinary interactions, couldn't ignore it, so he had to bend down slightly and grabbed his hand. Yakira, Tsunade village. No matter what he is thinking in his heart, at least on the surface Senju Mayuki does not act like a child at all, but says with a very calm and confident expression and tone, "Nice to meet you, hope you remember me." Okay, now I have. It's not because of this Chunin exam, but because you are a burner and I'm a nice release. The smile on her delicate face gradually faded away, not because the other party choked her, but it wasn't until she heard this sentence that she really looked at this child seriously for the first time, as if suddenly, and realized that the other person's tone and behavior were very different from ordinary children. However, as a ninja from Tsunade village, how could he be at a disadvantage in communicating with allied ninjas? Not to mention that the party was just a child barely as tall as his own waist, so after his eyes moved slightly for a few times, a slightly threatening smile gradually appeared on Yi Kang's face. If you're an ice escaper, you'll be evaporated very quickly. When you encounter a burn escape, it's one-sided. Senju Mayuki shook her head and retorted faster than her brain. Ice is the form of water at low temperatures. The essence of ice ability is to control water and create low temperatures, while steam is a form of water at high temperatures. So theoretically, your burning escape is not without my. At this point, his voice suddenly stopped. Yi Kang, who was waiting to hear his opinion, suddenly saw this little guy holding his chin with his other hand and talking to himself. Yeah, why didn't you think of this before? I didn't think it was just to show off. The well-mannered Senju Mayuki, who was doing the analysis, suddenly took a sharp breath and shook his left foot while turning his head to look at Kwan in confusion. Why are you kicking me? However, what he didn't expect was that Kwan, who always only smiled at him, had a rare straight face this time. While looking straight ahead, he said in a tone without any emotion, "Hands, can you let go now?" What? Senju Mayuki was surprised, as if she had just realized that she had been holding her hand and hadn't let go. Oh, he relaxed his hands naturally, and there was no embarrassed expression on his face at all, as if he really just didn't notice what was happening. Then he continued to pretend to be indifferent and nodded to Yi Kang. "Let's say goodbye first. We are going to take the exam." That expression, that posture, it would be the same for uninformed people to think that it was not him who blocked their way, but Yi Kang who left him behind. Is this kid really such a genius? Or maybe he just has a lively personality and likes to play this kind of game of pretending to be an adult? Yi Kang stood there, silently watching the little figure gradually disappearing into the crowd. Looking back on the entire exchange process, I was a little confused for a moment as to what the little guy wanted to express when he stopped me. But one thing is certain, right now, she has indeed, as the other party said, firmly remembered that there is such a little guy in Konoha village. Behind the crowd, looking at Izumi, whose face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, Hinata Takuma couldn't help but shook his head and asked aloud, "Is there anything about that woman that particularly interests you?" The two heirs at the bottom of the pot were stunned for a moment. Senju Mayuki paused for a moment and then replied in a normal manner, "No, I just wanted to say hello." Kwan just snorted dissatisfiedly at such words, which he knew were a lie, and then stepped heavily into the examination room. "You." Hinata Takuma shook his head, then followed with a sigh. "TSK no why, don't you believe me? I say this all for your own good. You are all still underage. I can't just admit it to you outright. In fact, I just fell in love with her body and wanted to take in this beautiful young person with clear eyes and a broad mind. Become my personal tool. Just be my subordinate. Let me tell you, I actually want to teach her the correct way to wear clothes." Chapter 59. Ninjas don't just fight and kill. The examination room was converted from a venue used for conferences. There were more than a dozen rows of tables arranged neatly, with 10 people in each row and an empty seat between every 2 people. It seems that the members of each team were scattered randomly. Izumi is in the 3rd row by the left window, Hinata Takuma is in the middle of the 9th row, and Senju Mayuki is a little to the left in the 6th row. There is actually a written test in the Chunin exam. Are you sure you are not joking? Compared with outside, the examination room was not quiet at all. On the contrary, it seemed noisier because of the denser crowds. Although they come from different villages, when it comes to exams, everyone should have the same feelings. As soon as someone sat down, they came around to express their indignation. Don't ninjas just perform missions and kill people? I really don't understand why they are taking exams. Some people were completely defeated, scratching their heads with both hands and their faces full of food. Damn, this is terrible. My grades were not good when I was in ninja school. It has been so long since I graduated. I have already given back all the things I learned back to the teacher. Of course, there must be some who are as calm and calm as Senju Mayuki. Those people may simply be confident in their own achievements. Senju Mayuki because of the Chunin exam plot she had watched in her previous life. Although he can't remember the specific content, he feels that the purpose of the exam should still be the same. The first written test should be a rough screening to eliminate those candidates who do not have enough ninja literacy, are not strong-willed enough, and have a weak sense of teamwork. Otherwise, even if they advance to the next exam, these people will most likely only be a foil to others, and if they are unlucky, they may die in the exam room again. Although I was warned that there would be a mortality rate when I signed up, Konoha, as the host, had a headache. If too many died, you are too much. There was a sudden commotion in the front right. A Tsunade girl sitting in the fourth row suddenly stood up and glared at several male candidates around her. Please apologize immediately for what you just said. The entire examination room fell silent because of the girl's shout. Although the candidates from Sand Ninja Village who were scattered around the examination room didn't know what happened, they all stood up immediately when they saw this scene. What's wrong, Maki? What's going on? Did they bully you? Real tree. Senju Mayuki thought about it for a moment. He seemed to be a student of Yikang, right? Being surrounded by so many people all of a sudden, some of the male ninjas suddenly looked a little embarrassed. However, there were still 3 guys who remained unmoved at all. Even under the gaze of so many people, they still said indifferently, we just shared each other's views on beautiful women on an artistic level. Is this too much? That's it, you are the same little girl. Your mental endurance is so weak. My brother advises you to go back early and don't take such a cruel exam again, hahaha. The 3 of them laughed wildly. There were also some people who didn't know anything about it, but after hearing what they said about their views on women, they all laughed in a low voice with some understanding in their eyes. Where does this come from? A grass ninja, a taki ninja, and even a guy with a Konoha forehead protector. They also share their views on beautiful women on an artistic level. To put it bluntly, aren't they just a few women? Childish. To say something bad is to praise them. How the hell can he charge at a tablet that's 12 or 13 years old? Maki was obviously angry at the other party's rogueness, but he couldn't really do anything to the other party in the examination room, so he had to grit his teeth and warn angrily, you 3, especially you. Maki stared closely at the candidate wearing a Konoha forehead protector. As an ally, you actually took the lead in using such low-level and vulgar language to slander the leading jounin of an ally in public. After the exam is over, I will definitely report the bad behavior of you people to the organizer. What? These guys dare to insult Lord Yikang? How dare you insult the heroes of Tsunade Village? You must not let them go. That's right. You must give us an explanation. Otherwise, it will be regarded as you are provoking Tsunade Ninja Village. All the Sand Ninja candidates were instantly angry, and they are all the kind who are willing to do whatever it takes, even if a war breaks out right now. The carelessness in Senju Mayuki's eyes slowly disappeared. This means that these hairy guys were in line just now. Is he my special tool, man? What an insult. Don't talk nonsense. When they saw such a big commotion, the 3 guys realized something was wrong. Especially the Konoha candidate. He pretended to be calm and said to Maki, hey, Tsunade Ninja, aren't you a bit like this? You are feeding Nima. Click. What? Ow. Well. 3 muffled sounds sounded almost at the same time. Click. Exclamation mark. Under the shocked gazes of all the candidates, 3 arm-thick icicles pushed these 3 guys to the ceiling and sealed their limbs almost in the blink of an eye. Wow. Cough cough cough. The 3 guys were shocked and angry, and the guy from Grass Ninja Village even struggled and yelled, who is it? Who is it that is secretly attacking us? Come forward if you have the guts. It's embarrassing. Does using those vulgar language to discuss women really give you a ridiculous sense of superiority? Following the direction of the sound, everyone looked at the child in the 6th row. In the 3rd row by the left window, a small figure crossed his arms and looked at everything coldly. Sure enough, this guy has some strange relationship with the female ninja of Tsunade. It turned out to be him. On the Tsunade Ninja Village side, although they were angry that such a bad guy would appear among the candidates in Konoha Village, the anger in their hearts was somewhat relieved after seeing that the ninjas who took action To punish them were also Konoha ninjas, Vent and Comfort. Moreover, the one who took action was a member of the team that Lord Yakura/teacher valued very much, which at least proved that the Leaf Village also attached great importance to the alliance between the two countries. But he was able to control 3 genin in an instant, so that they were unable to fight back. This little guy's really as strong as Lord Yakura/Sensei, he said. Hey, you re awesome. I'll just admit defeat. Hurry up, and let me down. As the cold continued to invade, the 3 guys who were still struggling soon discovered that something was wrong. What kind of ice is this that is riding on a horse? Why is it so cold? Master. SHHHHH examiner. Someone come quickly. It's too cold. Let us down quickly. Ha 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 boom. A burst of violent movement suddenly came from the front. When the candidates turned their heads and looked over, they discovered that there were more than a dozen adult ninjas wearing Konoha forehead protectors on the podium. Finally come. For a moment, this thought flashed through the minds of all the candidates. The 3 guys on the ceiling suddenly became energetic and shouted, "Examiner! Let us down quickly! Let us down quickly! I'm freezing to death! I was the examiner of the first exam, and it's not the same." The speaker was a guy who looked a little familiar to Senju Mayuki. There were some striped scars on his left cheek. If you fight in the Chunin examination room, do you want to be eliminated directly? Although he didn't speak in a very stern tone, almost every candidate who was swept by Bingzu's similar gaze felt as if his whole body suddenly felt cold. Ice? When they saw the 3 people who were still pinned to the ceiling by icicles, the corners of their eyes moved unconsciously. Then, following the positions of the candidates, they soon saw an empty space around the Senju Zenmoon. It turned out to be him. There was a moment of silence, then he lowered his eyes and said, "Let them down." What mistake was made? Being frozen for so long can be considered as atonement. It's a pity. If he were an ordinary candidate, he would definitely seize this opportunity to scare the monkeys. Only this little guy can't. Now among all the ninjas in the entire Konoha village who have some brains, who doesn't know how much the Hokage values this man? Chapter 60. The first written test is over. There are a few important rules in this exam. First, this exam adopts a points deduction system. Each candidate is initially assigned 10 points. The test paper also has a total of 10 questions. 1 point will be deducted for each wrong question. Second, individual scores are not used as the final criterion, but are calculated based on the total score of the 3-person team. Anyone with a score lower than the average will be disqualified. Varied. Shut up. Anyone who speaks another word before I finish speaking will be immediately disqualified from the team's exam. As soon as this sentence came out, many candidates immediately looked at the examiner on the podium with anger and fear of speaking. Not just those from other villages, but also many candidates from Konoha village. The third and most important one. Having said this, he looked around the examination room in unison. His calm eyes made many candidates subconsciously look away. During the exam, any cheating or cheating-like behavior will be deducted 2 points immediately once discovered by the Chunin invigilating the exam. After hearing this, all the candidates couldn't help but look to the right side of the examination room at the same time. The Chunin who had just appeared with Tamashira were sitting in a row, each holding a noteboard in their hands, and looking at them with a look that was entertaining. These are Chunin elites specially selected for this exam, so I advise you to put away those ridiculous cheating tricks. Anyone who wants to become a Chunin should take the exam like a good ninja. Some candidates who lack confidence in their theoretical knowledge will immediately despair when they hear this. What are you doing? Who would arrange a dozen invigilators in one examination room? Exclamation mark. At last, seeing the reactions of some guys, I couldn't help but feel a trace of ridicule at the corner of my mouth. Think this is over? If one person in the team scores 0 points, the entire team will be directly judged to be unqualified. What? This is too outrageous. The candidates' emotions instantly became excited. Time limit is 1 hour. However, they were not similar enough, but there was no explanation. They just announced plainly, the first test for Chunin selection begins now. Even if I have 1 dissatisfactions in my heart, I can't care about it at this time. The examination room instantly resounded with countless voices turning over test papers. Senju Mayuki briefly browsed through the contents of the test paper and found that it was a normal 10 questions, not the 9+1 that Naruto had, but the questions seemed a bit difficult. Sure enough, I should take the postgraduate entrance examination to collect intelligence. In fact, he had already guessed the purpose of this exam from the moment he saw the dozen chunin holding noteboards. Is it just because the pervert Marino Ihiki hasn't grown up yet that's why there's no such torturous question? But even so, it is already difficult enough for ordinary candidates. First of all, the questions were difficult enough. Even Senju Mayuki, a self-confessed extraordinary guy, felt his scalp was a little numb after reading the questions. Secondly, the second rule requires all members with lower than average scores to be disqualified. It was the first time for everyone to meet each other, and no one knew what other people's grades were. In order not to let their team score below the average, everyone must find a way to answer more questions. But the question comes, and it's extremely difficult. What should I do if I really can't answer it? Except for some guys who accepted their fate, the only ones left were taking risks and cheating. Anyway, there are 5 chances we are all genin. If I cheat, I will be caught, but others won't. Being caught once only deducts 2 points. If you do nothing, you will just sit and wait to be eliminated. Then when they actually start cheating, they will find another problem. The invigilators found that they only recorded it once and did not remind anyone how many times you had taken it. This puts constant psychological pressure on those candidates who cheat. How many times have I cheated? How many times has it been discovered? If I'm discovered this time, will I get exactly 5 times and deduct 0 points from me, causing the entire team to be affected? As expected of Konoha Village, which has figured out a complete system and process, any examiner can play with the psychology of the candidates. But fortunately, these things basically have nothing to do with class, where all the students are top students. The first question is the most basic and most commonly used code interpretation. It was a bit complicated, but it wasn't a big problem. After thinking about it for a while, Senju Mayuki picked up the pen and started writing rustlingly. The second question is to calculate and draw ways and routes that can effectively attack the imaginary enemy standing on the commanding heights. The third question is to calculate the maximum range of shuriken at different heights, different wind directions and wind speeds. The fourth question, fifth, until I finished writing the 8th question and was about to look at the next question. No 43. Cheated 5 times. 0 points. No 3 and number 71 of the same team are automatically judged to be unqualified. Finally, someone started to be unable to bear it any longer. Look up at the clock on the wall. Hey, it's exactly 10 o'clock. Do those guys have any obsessive compulsive disorder? Number 25. Number 86. Number 93. More and more candidates are kicked out by the invigilators, and many of the remaining candidates are becoming more and more anxious. Good guy, it's possible to not be discovered when there are more than 100 people alone. There were fewer and fewer people in the back, and basically one invigilator only looked at 3 or 4 people. What a waste. But the more anxious they are, the easier it is for them to attract the attention of the invigilators. The longer I stare at it, the more anxious I become. Seeing those big guys writing furiously with their heads down all the time, those candidates who wanted to cheat, felt like they were in trouble. How on earth are you prepared to raise the average score, you little bastards? Live together. At 10:12, I finally finished answering the 9th question. To be honest, the remaining question was a bit difficult. He felt that he might not be able to do it even in the end, so he felt like giving up. Look around again. Alas, there are less than half of them, maybe only 3 or 40 left. Look at them both. Although I have confidence in Izumi and Hinata Takuma's theoretical foundation, it's okay anyway. With this thought in mind, I put my chin on the table pretending to be bored. In fact, he used his power to create countless ice crystal particles smaller than dust in the air, then attach mental power to these particles to replace eyes. This is what he came up with by chance, after returning from his mission in the Kingdom of the Sea. It can be considered a very practical little trick I just get dizzy easily. Quan. I found it. Good guy. You've answered half of the last question. Are you even better than me? Hyuga Toku. TSK. Made. Still have to write. I once again searched through the ice crystals among the remaining candidates and finally found the standard answer of the pretending candidate in the front right corner. Copy it. Swish. Number 42. Number 31. Number 83. The exam is over. At 10:30, both sides shouted stop on time. Everyone stops writing. Go to the venue of the second level exam immediately. After the second level exam is over, the results of this exam will be announced. Senju Mayuki was a little surprised. Wasn't he swiping people on the spot? Can those who fail the first level still participate in the second level? Excuse me. A candidate from Sand Hidden Village raised his hand. So even if you pass the second level exam, but do not do well in the first level exam, you will still be unable to take the third level exam. Yes. Why? That's right. Can't we just brush off those who fail the exam? Why do we have to ask people to take one more exam? Quiet. This time, the same attitude was much better. Although he still had no expression, he was not as impatient as before the exam started. Instead, he explained patiently, you are the ones who want to become Chunin. After you become Chunin, you will be responsible for leading the team. But when performing tasks, you often don't see the results immediately every time. What will you do at this time? Are you not going to carry out the following tasks just to wait for this result? Obviously that's not going to work. For those of you who are able to stay in this examination room until now, I believe you have given your best. In this case, then believe in your own strength and fight with all your strength in the second test. Chapter 61 Test 2. 2 types of rules. Konoha practice ground number 44. It looks like it's all here. At 11 o'clock sharp, a Konoha ninja wearing glasses walked out of the makeshift hut, holding something like a stack of test papers in his hand. Is this the examiner? Medium to tall height, square glasses, thin face, very serious. Well, not impressed. Everyone. With a greeting, all the candidates soon gathered over. I believe you all have guessed the location of the second exam, the examiner said, pointing his right thumb back. That's right, it's the number 44 training ground inside the barbed wire fence. Many people prefer to call it the Forest of Death. Forest of Death. Many candidates, including the genin of Konoha, couldn't help but look into the forest. Strange tree trunks, gloomy shade. Especially from time to time, you will hear the roars and screams of some animals coming from inside. Go. The faces of many candidates began to look solemn. This kind of place will only make people think of poisonous snakes, beasts, spiders, and centipedes. Before the exam starts, I need you to sign something. With that said, the examiner handed the stack of paper in his hand to the candidate at the front. Consent? Yes. While watching the candidates hand out the consent forms one by one, the content of the second exam is to ask you to carry out an extreme wild survival challenge in this venue. Because it is too dangerous inside, someone may die for various strange reasons, so I must make sure that you all follow I participated of my own will. The candidates were collectively speechless. What does follow one's own will mean? If I don't sign, will you let me take the exam? Isn't that just putting the responsibility for death on the candidates themselves? Fortunately, there are not many cowards who can stand here. After traveling thousands of miles to take the Chunin exam, how could he be frightened by a mere consent form? The rules for this exam are now announced. After confirming that everyone had received the consent form, the examiner did not write any ink and just waved someone to bring over a hanging board with a simple topographic map hanging on it. Practice field number 44 is a circle surrounded by 44 locked entrances with a radius of 10 kilometers. There are rivers and woods in it. In the middle is a tall tower, which is also the end point of this exam. And what you are going to do? The examiner took out 2 scrolls from his pocket, held one in each hand, and showed the words on it to the candidates. It's a rule-free scroll battle in this venue. World. Senju Mayuki's eyes moved slightly. In fact, he was also thinking about whether it would be this way at first. But there were Konoha 3, Tsunade Cure 3, Kusaga Cure 1, Takinen 1, and Hana Ninja 1 from the land of vegetables, a total of 9 teams. Yes, you read that right, it is the country of vegetables. I don't know which naming wizard came up with the good name. So he was a little confused about how to distribute the amounts of heaven and earth. In an exam of this level, there is no chance that things like buys will disrupt the balance, right? Each team will hold a scroll of heaven or earth. The standard for passing the exam is for 3 people to reach the middle tower with 2 scrolls of heaven and earth. The time limit is within 120 hours from the start of the exam. 5 days? What about eating? Hearing this question, the examiner's eyes became sharp. When he saw that he was actually a candidate from Konoha, his face suddenly turned darker. Solve it yourself. Remember, you are taking the Chunin exam now. Don't ask me such stupid questions again. The Konoha candidate who asked the question suddenly did not dare to say anything anymore. Fortunately, the examiner just scolded him and didn't make it difficult for him anymore. And those candidates from other villages, logically speaking, they should all be gloating when they see Konoha as their host suffer. But I really don't have that thought now. 5 days in a place like this? Are you still taking care of your own food and accommodation? Should I eat poisonous snakes or spiders? Just thinking about it makes me feel sick to my stomach. Excuse me. Maki from Sand Hidden Village suddenly raised his hand. We have a total of 9 teams. The ratio of the heaven and earth scrolls cannot be balanced at all. Does this mean that at most 4 teams will qualify, and no matter what, 1 team will be eliminated because they cannot meet the conditions? Yup. Whether it's a heaven scroll or an earth scroll, you will suffer a loss if you get 5 copies of either one. That's it. What should we do about this problem? Other candidates who thought about this also raised questions. After all, no one wants to be the party destined to be eliminated. Good question. Facing these people, the noisy examiner did not panic, but calmly pushed up his glasses. To address this problem, I have come up with 2 plans. First, I will prepare 5 heaven and earth scrolls and put them in a box and send 1 person from each team to the room to randomly draw. In this way, all teams will not know which scroll others have been assigned, and whether you draw the majority or the minority is completely left to fate. Is that so? Some candidates couldn't help but nodded when they heard this. If it is completely determined by luck, it is not unacceptable. However, some people still wanted to hear another plan, so they couldn't help but said anxiously, what about the second? The second plan is, as the examiner spoke, he took out a completely different scroll from his pocket, with the words heaven and earth clearly written on it. As you can see, this is a special scroll. The team holding it does not need to participate in the competition. As long as it can reach the tower within the time limit, it will be considered qualified. Isn't this equivalent to a buy? The candidates immediately became buzzing as soon as they heard this. With such a good thing, everyone must want to get this scroll. Of course, there were also those with clear minds who immediately shouted loudly, how could such a good thing happen? There must be other conditions or restrictions. Of course. At this point, the examiner's face showed a smile for the first time. It's just that compared to the words spoken, this smile is more like a joke. It's very easy to get this scroll. You just need to take it from my hand in front of all the candidates. Wow. Doesn't this mean that we are being targeted by all the other teams before we even start? The other teams can go directly to the tower if they grab this scroll, right? Of course can. And in addition to this, a separate heaven and earth scroll will also have a sensing spell for special scrolls. As long as you get close to a certain range, you can know the approximate location of the special scroll based on the reaction of the spell. What? Isn't the team holding the special scroll a clear target? That's it. 5 days. Who can guarantee that they can maintain sufficient vigilance for 5 consecutive days without being attacked by others? What about the sensing range of the technique? 500 meters? Or 1 kilometer? We can't talk about this. We should still reserve some human rights for the team with special scrolls. The examiner glanced at the candidates with different expressions, and the smile at the corner of his mouth became stronger. However, in the eyes of the candidates, how can this be a smile? He's basically a devil who tempts people to death, right? How's it going? Do you have confidence in yourself? You can come and get it now. You're kidding. Only a fool would get it. With such harsh conditions, you have to be mentally ill to be willing to choose this scroll. Many candidates no longer have the desire for special scrolls and would rather choose the first plan to try their luck. The first type is just likely to be eliminated. If you choose a special scroll, you are just waiting for someone to attack you. Of course, there are some who have ideas, but give up in the end, such as Yikang's student Maki, who looked in the direction of Senju Mayuki and secretly bit his lip. If there is no group like them in this exam, it doesn't mean we can't give it a try. What's wrong? No one has the courage to try? After scanning the crowd twice, he found that most of the candidates were avoiding his gaze. The examiner couldn't help but sigh slightly. I thought I could see some interesting things in this case. Then I can only. Hey, it's that guy. Is he crazy? How dare he do it in front of so many people? Have you all forgotten? I have that kind of strength. Okay. Oh. The examiner stopped, putting away the special scroll, and looked down at Senju Shinetsu, who was walking towards him. Note, normal pace. Not slowly, not slowly. I stepped on the horse. How did I blow up this little ancestor? My bad mouth. I was thinking this in my heart, but there was no wave on my face. Just looking at the other person's little hand stretched out, I couldn't help but ask again carefully, you sure? Ah. Senju Mayuki nodded, and then took the special scroll under everyone's gaze. This moment, someone's eyes shine. Someone showed a cruel smile. There are also people who are unwilling to give up, but feel that it is the most reasonable for him to receive this scroll among the 9 teams. All squads. At this point, the examiner had nothing to hesitate, and shouted directly to all the candidates, send a person to the HUD with 3 consent forms, to exchange for the scroll. Then follow the staff to their respective entrances, and start the second exam on time at 3 o'clock. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62. Just in silence, confused. It's true that the younger you are, the more courageous you are. At the 5th entrance, looking at Senju Mayuki standing silently aside, the Konoha Chunin who acted as a staff member couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Naturally, he also knew about this young master. I can also understand that geniuses generally cannot be judged by ordinary people's standards. But no matter how talented you are, receive this special scroll in front of all other candidates. Is it a little too confident? That is to say, taking into account the relationship with fellow villagers, even if he thought about it in his heart, this Chunin could not bear to use those more extreme words. In fact, what he wanted to say more was some more offensive words such as brainless, idiot, expert, spiritual boy. In fact, not only him, but also the other staff at the entrance had similar thoughts. Because without exception, those candidates all showed malice towards the group that took the special scroll. The 2 groups in Konoha village were a little better, and were relatively reserved, but they still expressed the intention of getting ready to come over and have a look in and out of their words. As for the candidates from other villages, they began to plan how to act according to the characteristics of the special scroll directly in front of the staff. Even the candidate group of Tsunagakure village, which is an ally, is the same. Seeing these guys from other villages blatantly discussing how to target the candidates in their own village, all the staff couldn't help but let out a sigh. You are relatively strong, but now everyone is targeting you. You must know that those standing here now, whether it is ninjutsu knowledge or ninja skills, there is always an elite who can already use it. Is it possible that you can still escape under the encirclement and suppression of 8 teams like this? Sigh. He is obviously valued so much by Hokage-sama. He can obviously have a very bright future. Drip 12 o'clock sharp. Time up. No solution anymore. It's already this time. Even if you regret it, it's too late. Opening the chain neatly, the Chunin staff member signaled to Senju Mayuki and the others, and whispered as they entered, "Come on. I wish you victory in one fell swoop." Senju Mayuki looked at him in surprise. However, I'm still very happy for the blessings from my seniors in the same village. So he and Hinata Takuma nodded seriously to the senior. Quan smiled and gave him a round okay, then turned around and caught up with the 2 guys in front of him, and the 3 of them stepped into the door leading to the examination room together. Ugh. Seeing their figures quickly disappearing into the woods, the Chunin outside the door could only sigh silently. I hope my blessing can bring them some good luck. At the same time, at the entrance to other test centers, waiting at the 8th entrance is a team from Tsunade village. Quick! As soon as the barbed wire door was opened, the 3 candidates rushed in at full speed. Ignore the other teams for now. Head to the center point as quickly as possible, as close to the tower as possible. That's right. No matter how far the induction range of the spell is, as long as we are close enough to the center point, we will always be able to find them. The one at the 14th entrance was Kusanagi, who also pushed open the barbed wire door and rushed in, just as he opened the chain. Hehe, what a great opportunity given by God. How dare you treat our companions like that? We can't usually do anything to the people of Konoha, but here they all signed the death consent form. If they die, we can't be blamed. That's right. Hehe, so what, if they are strong? I don't believe they didn't sleep even once in 5 days. The one at the 18th entrance was the flower ninja. Although he was not as eager as the grass ninja village after opening the door, he immediately ran towards the tower. Are we really going to join in the fun? The candidates in the flower ninja village are all male, and all of them have thick eyebrows, big eyes, resolute faces, and extraordinary temperament. They all look quite handsome. The leader is a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, who looks like he should be the team leader. After hearing his teammates' questions, he was silent for a moment, and then said in a deep voice, "It's not that we are joining in the fun, but that group has attracted the attention of all the teams. I dare not say that the 2 groups in Konoha, the candidates from other villages, must all have the same purpose as us. Yes." The face on the left continued resolutely, "I feel like the 2 groups from Konoha village will definitely go too. So no matter what we think, all our opponents will go, and then we will be left alone, and will be of no use. We will just wait to be eliminated. Not just them, but also the Suna ninja at the 23rd entrance, the Takinan at the 26th entrance, the 31st entrance. For the first time ever, in any previous Chunin exam organized in the Forest of Death, there has never been a situation like this one where all the candidates were drawn in the same direction from the very beginning. So, what exactly are you going to do?" In the control room in the middle tower, the examiner looked at the surveillance images on the screen, thinking over and over again in his mind, how would the little ancestors team break this predicament? Although the third Hokage has shown how much he values that little ancestor guy more than once, although this accident was caused by my own fancy ideas, but the choice to accept it was entirely based on his own will, and it was done in full view of the public, and there was no way he could fake it. So even if something unexpected happens during this exam, the third Hokage cannot blame himself. It's just that I have to work hard these days and watch the surveillance carefully. All of the things I thought about above have a premise. It doesn't matter if you get hurt or something. If you really dare to let that little ancestor die inside, then even if I don't explain it directly, my little life is probably about the same. This is indeed the case. After knowing this, the third Hokage drove out of the office with a dark face, and then took out the perspective bowl and ordered, "Follow me. No one can harm their lives no matter what." The 4 words, "no matter what," are very strong. There was no answer or any sound, but the third Hokage knew that the Anbu had accepted his order. As for how to understand the content of the order, that is their own problem. Locking the scope of the telescope technique at the 44th training ground, and then based on the chakra characteristics of Senju Zinzuki, they were quickly found in the woods at the 5th entrance. "You brat. You're really going to cause trouble for me," the old man muttered, then thought about it, and suddenly felt that something was wrong. "I was so excited when I suddenly heard the news. But now calm down and think about it. With Senju Mayuki's intelligence, it is impossible to imagine what kind of scene this will cause." Thinking of this, a look of thoughtfulness appeared on the face of the third Hokage. When he looked at Senju Shinetsu in the glass bowl, he was not as anxious as before, but with a little curiosity. "I want to see how you, little guy, are going to solve this situation." Crash! A tree trunk about half an arm thick fell down with a rumble. Izumi and Hinata looked at each other and saw the confusion on each other's faces. After getting along with each other for a long time, I knew that he was not the kind of person who messed around, so I listened to him and did not go to the tower immediately. But this, what's the point of cutting down trees? Come Senju Zenryu by the big tree suddenly waved to Kwan. After she came over, she stretched out her hand and made two gestures on the tree trunk. "Let's try your new weapon. It's so thick, cut it into 2 pieces." "Okay." Although I still didn't understand, Izumi immediately became happy when he mentioned his new weapon. He touched his waist with both hands and took out 2 fist blades that were very similar to Asuma's Fian. In fact, I only had 1 handful when I redeemed it. I just didn't expect that the caravan that I rescued on the way to the Kingdom of the Sea actually came to Konoha to express my gratitude and directly pointed out that I would pay a sum of thanks to those 3 little guys. Later, after consultation, it was discovered that the caravan happened to have chakra metal in stock, so the Third Hokage decided to directly get a pair of weapons for Izumi. Inject, friction, hum soon. A layer of chakra visible to the naked eye was attached to the outer edge of the weapon. He tightened his weapon with both hands and aimed at the tree trunk. Drink. Click, click, click. 3 knives. 2 cutting boards a few centimeters thick were cut out. Ho ho ho. Seeing such a neat effect, Izumi was so happy that she just rubbed her face against her weapon. She didn't even care about what Senju Mayuki wanted to do. Condensation. Senju Shinetsu didn't do any ink. He raised his right hand slightly and made 3 ice trays that were larger than the cutting board. Then he asked Hinata Takuma to place the 2 cutting boards on one of them. Finally, he made slight improvements to the ice tray and locked the cutting boards come up. He jumped on the remaining ice tray first, and after the 2 of them jumped on respectively, he gave another warning. Use chakra to fix yourself. Let's set a record today and try to reach the finish line in half an hour. In the Hokage's office, looking at this scene in the glass ball, the Third Hokage Sarutobi Hirozen fell silent. After half an hour, seeing the 3 spotless little candidates who didn't even take a breath strolling into the tower, the Invigilator and the staff also fell silent. The Invigilator was immediately confused. This seems to be a little different from the expected plot. Chapter 63 The game between ninjas. Quickly shuttle and hide in dense forests. Use the terrain and environment to skillfully lay traps, the traces of passing, and the smell left behind. Collect every piece of useful information from the traces of true and false. Finally, after a fierce physical collision, the confrontation between ninja tools and ninja tools, or wind, fire, water, earth, and thunder, various ninjutsu skillfully cooperate or compete with each other. After several days of intense and fierce competition, the victors, whose physical strength and mental strength had already reached their limits, supported each other under the setting sun, and walked together to the tower leading to victory, leaving only a row of tired but strong backs. Although it is very inappropriate to think so. But this explosive scene full of blood and passion was the real intention of designing the special scroll in the first place. Instead of asking you guys to run to the finish line just half an hour after the exam started, drink tea and wait for the exam to end. Looking at the 3 Senju Mayuki who were led to the lounge by the staff, the examiner felt that his mood was very complicated now. Obviously just now I was worried whether these little guys would be attacked. I was obviously thinking, just now that once such a situation occurs, I must protect their lives, even if I risk my reputation as the Invigilator. But now that I see them arriving safely, why can't I laugh? Never mind, it's meaningless, so be it. Whoosh whoosh in the woods, which was about 5 kilometers away from the tower, several candidates who were running rapidly suddenly jumped back in unison, and immediately found a place to hide on the tree trunks. The candidate opposite, after confronting each other in silence for a few minutes, after deliberation, the thick-browed man from the Flower Ninja village took the initiative to lean against the tree trunk and shouted to the opposite side, "No matter which village you are from, whether from Konoha, Tsunade, or Kusagakure and Takigakure, I think we should not consume each other now, but give priority to finding where the special scroll is." As soon as he said this sentence, he basically took the initiative to expose his team information to the other party, but at this time, he didn't care about it because he believed that the other party most likely thought the same way. I believe that the vast majority of the 8 think teams so too. If you are from Konoha or Tsunade, think about whether at this time you should find the team of companions and allies holding special scrolls as soon as possible and give them help. If it's Kusagakure and Takigakure, you should also think about it. Once you are united by the alliance between Konoha and Tsunade, will you have to wait to lose your qualifications, or hope that the other party will have the scroll you just need? Possibly qualified. On the other side of the confrontation are the candidates of Tsunade, Mashu, Wii. With the relationship with Yikang, the heroic teacher, Maki naturally became the temporary leader of the team. The other two candidates were accustomed to asking her opinion on everything. He held the branch tightly and thought for a while, then looked at his companions firmly. I think what he said makes sense. At this time, it is obvious that almost all teams are trying to find the location of the special scroll as soon as possible. Whether it is for alliance or something, I think we should not consume too much strength before that. Upon hearing this, the two teammates immediately nodded in agreement. Well, I think so too. Me too. Well, seeing this, Zenshu didn't hesitate. After getting close to the tree, he slightly adjusted his position and posture, and then said to the other party, "We agree with your proposal. A very sensible judgment." The other party also responded immediately. "Before we find the special scroll, I hope we can exercise some restraint and keep some distance from each other. We will wait until then to make any decisions." "Agree. Goodbye then." As soon as he finished speaking, the three candidates from Huanan village left in another direction. The three people here nodded to each other when they saw this, and then chose to leave quickly in the opposite direction to Hana Ninja. In fact, it's not just them. The same situation also happens in other places. The same encounter happened while galloping. Also dodge and hide immediately. The only difference is that the teams on both sides have changed, and the methods of communication are also different. Sand Ninja, Kusanagi Ninja, Taki Ninja, Flower Ninja. No matter what purpose each has, and what differences there are in the process, in short, they all chose to avoid it temporarily, and everything was focused on finding the special scroll first. As for the candidates in Konoha, is there such a good thing? When he meets up with that talented team, he only needs to make assists to survive. Then the 8 teams started to get busy with their own thoughts. Some are laying traps, some are waiting in ambush, some are also conducting carpet searches with scrolls. Although the purposes are different, each team has fulfilled the agreement very well, and they are all looking for that special scroll in their own way. As for whether you can beat it after you find it, of course they have also thought about this question. The scene in the first examination room was indeed a bit shocking. But that was just because the other party made a sudden move, and the 3 unlucky guys had no defense. Now that everyone knows what that kid is capable of, let's not say whether he can beat them or not. At least he can hold on until other teams come over, right? We are all genin. No matter how powerful you are, can you kill us all without us being on guard? With this idea in mind, the afternoon passed quickly with all kinds of busyness, and the sky gradually became dark. Although they had been busy for a long time and gained nothing, no one was disappointed, or they thought this was normal. After all, he is a player of that kind of ability. It is natural to expect that everyone will target this. If it were them themselves, they would definitely not appear in the eyes of others with such arrogance. They will definitely observe other people's movements and patterns of action in the dark, or wait until these teams can't help but start fighting each other, and then sneak past quietly. Ninja. The competition is about patience and the psychological game of cat and mouse. I'll go up half the night, and you'll go up half the night. Although I feel that the other party is not that stupid, in order to prevent the other party from taking advantage of this psychological difference, each team still arranges a person on duty before the break. In fact, the main thing is to pay attention to see whether the spells on the scroll are acting. We don't know when or where they will slip by, but they also don't know where we will be watching at night. Everyone believed that in this game at night, the one with the induction technique would definitely have the upper hand. After all, the two sides are currently in darkness and light. Without knowing the location of the secret sentry and the range of the spell's induction, staying in the wider periphery will not only make it harder to be discovered, but also allow them to wait for work and take the opportunity to consume the patience and physical strength of these people. So this is not only a psychological game, but also a multiple test of patience and physical strength, as well as whether you can maintain a high degree of vigilance at all times and guard against temporary betrayal by other teams. Everyone is a ninja. No one knows who is who. Chapter 64. For the exam. No shame. The first night passed quickly. Basically, each team had 2 sentries on duty and gained 0. But it doesn't matter, this is normal. Ninja isn't the competition about who can endure more. I was a little tired during the night watch, but similarly, the special scroll team during the day had to be careful to avoid the searches from the 8 teams at all times. Compared with the other party's consumption of being vigilant at all times, he is just on duty all night and occasionally looking at the scrolls, which is not very tiring at all. Although there were 2 gangster teams in the middle, everyone was running around in an irregular manner, and no one could tell which scroll sensed them first. With this idea in mind, the 8 teams expanded the search scope in a tacit understanding the next day. They believed that under this carpet-like search, they would be able to find that team. Haha, I don't know what those guys are thinking in their minds to make such a request. In order to expand the search area, Konoha's 2 teams did not join together, but after the encounter, they still made an agreement to immediately send out a signal to seek support if they were attacked. And although they also stayed up late last night, their mental state was completely different from the candidates in other villages. I'm a little tired, but my mood is very relaxed. After all, as long as we find that talented team, it basically means that we will definitely pass the exam. What we are comparing now is the time difference and the speed of support. Let's see which side finds it first, and whether we can arrive in time to support before other teams of candidates attack the talented team. It is also because of this awareness that when they occasionally meet other teams, each of Konoha's candidates can greet each other enthusiastically or point out the places they have just searched, so as to avoid the useless efforts of their temporary teammates. This is already made free labor. Everything is to pass the assessment. There is no shame. Inside the tower, looking at the 24 candidates in the surveillance room who turned into hard-working bees in order to find the special scroll. Let's take a look at the indoor surveillance. One is drinking tea, one is meditating, another one was in a daze and stood up. Where is she going? After looking at it for a while, oh, it turns out that I was just in a daze and bored, wandering around in the corridors. Looking back at the surveillance in the examination room, I looked at the determined expressions on the faces of the candidates as they passed by the camera. OX to the sighing stopped abruptly. The only 2 people in the monitoring room, the invigilator and the tunin on duty, couldn't help but look at each other, and then, alas, X2 I'm guilty. The day passed quickly, and there were still 2 sentries at night, so one of them must have not slept well for 2 days in a row. During the day on the 3rd day, the search continued. Although the search team would nod and say hello when they met, most of them were a little stiff in attitude, especially the unlucky guy who stayed up for 2 nights in a row. Of course, except for the 2 teams from Konoha village. On the 4th day, except for the candidates from the Leaf village who were smiling like idiots when meeting everyone, the faces of the other teams had all started to darken, and the eyes they looked at those temporary teammates during the encounter began to be full of caution and strangeness. Exclamation mark. It can't go on like this. During the lunch break, the candidates in Konoha village finally decided to change their plans after discussion. At this time, no one has been found. The special scroll team is either still trying to be patient with them in a corner, or it has already passed through the search network through some unknown means. In fact, from the bottom of their hearts, they were willing to believe in the first possibility. After all, everyone saw the performance of the other 2 teams in Konoha every day, and it didn't seem like they were acting an. Although it sounds unpleasant to say, the fact is that if the 3 teams from Konoha village really get together, all the remaining teams, except Tsunade village, will have to shut down. No matter which team you encounter this afternoon, remember to mark them with the hidden insect technique, and take them out one by one, while they are sleeping tonight. Kusagakure village does not have its own unique ninjutsu school. What they are good at is studying and imitating other people's ninjutsu, so it is not unusual to see ninjutsu from any ninjutsu village in Kusakure's team. Fortunately, everyone is really searching these days, and tiredness is also a common phenomenon. If you are calculating mentally but not paying attention, the probability of a successful sneak attack when you are tired late at night should not be very low. Yo, how are you doing there? Fate seemed to be taking care of them. Not long after setting off in the afternoon, they met a team, and it turned out to be from the Leaf Village. Haha, this is really God's care. The three candidates from Konoha Village couldn't help but look at each other pitifully. If we can't find that brat, I'll blame you for bullying our companions. One of them slightly and immediately cast an ninjutsu quietly. Then he slightly curled up the corner of his mouth and winked at the other two. Get it done. The companions were immediately convinced when they saw it, and then they pretended to be nothing and communicated with the Konoha candidates normally. Still not found. What about you? Oh, we are the same, just like before. The two parties exchanged greetings for a few words and then separated again. However, just as the candidates in Kusagakure village were just getting started, with proud smiles on their faces, they didn't see the Konoha candidates behind them suddenly and silently turning around and making a few hand seals on their backs. Art fire escape, ho fireball, wind escape, gale wind palm. Not only that, but at the moment when they were alert, they saw another team of candidates from Konoha appearing in front of them, and in a flash, 3 kunai with detonating talismans were inserted in front of them. Not good. The candidates in Konoha village suddenly lost their souls one by one. Just as he was about to flee to the left and right, he suddenly heard 2 more swishing sounds, and 2 kunai with detonating talismans attached came first and last again. Boom. X2 damn. In desperation, I had to choose the ground. But just as he was about to take off, he saw swish, swish, swish. I don't know how many kunai tied with detonating charms were inserted into the ground in front of them. I ride a horse. Despicable guy. How could an ordinary genin afford so many detonating charms? Boom. A large ball of flames, boosted by the strong wind, instantly blew across the tree trunk they were standing on. X3 bang bang, 3 figures with flames screamed and fell to the ground. However, among the kunai that were full of detonating charms, none of them exploded. Despicable, ahem, despicable. This is God. Coincidentally, the same plot also happened in another place. The only difference is that Tsunagakure, as the main attacker, has more people and ends the battle faster. Cough, cough. It's against the rules for you to form a team in the Chunin examination hall. The Taki ninja who had the scroll taken away had a look of dissatisfaction on his face. Form a team? Don't talk nonsense. The male candidate Tsunagakure who had just taken out the scroll from his arms corrected him righteously. Did you see those 2 teams taking action? They just happened to pass by there you. The Taki ninja candidate gritted his teeth immediately after hearing this. Madeline is so angry. But think about it carefully, the 2 teams of guys seemed to be just standing on the left and right blocking the road like door guards. Only this team was attacking the whole time. Mean. You big villages are really despicable. Chapter 65 List of the third examination. This is the end of the second Chunin selection examination. At exactly 7 noon on July 5th, with a loud announcement from a Chunin staff member, the door of the middle tower also closed with a bang. Then the Chunin raised his head and said to the camera, "Mr. Examiner, 12 people are confirmed to have passed the second exam. Over." Half an hour later, the 12 candidates, the leading jonin, and all the invigilators gathered in an empty hall. This Weian seems to be the one Zaro listed on. Looking at the huge stone handprints behind the jonin, Senju Mayuki finally had a subtle feeling of connecting with the plot in her heart. It has been more than a year since this happened, and it is not easy. Looking around, there are 4 teams present, namely Konoha 2 and Tsunagakure 2. This result seems to be what many people expected. After all, the most candidates in these 2 villages are facts. Even if they can't cooperate openly, they can easily clear out those small villages once they make up their mind. As for the end, the 2 teams in Konoha village saw little hope of winning at 6:9. The team that failed to collect the scrolls had no choice but to consider themselves unlucky and let the other team bring 1 sky to earth and a total of 3 scrolls. Entering the tower, although they are allies, it does not mean that candidates will be willing to give up their scrolls to others. To advance they also want Tsunagakure to carry forward his style. Isn't it because there are so few people that he can't beat him? Because of this, the candidates in Tsunade village finally had 3 heavens and 2 earths, and could only give up 1 team, so that the 2 villages reached a balance in terms of numbers. Ashamed to say, when they heard the staff say that these candidates had plowed the entire practice field several times in order to find themselves, Senju Mayuki and the 3 of them were a little confused. This is so. Can it be ignited purely by thinking? Therefore, when the candidates learned the truth from the staff that the special scroll team had arrived here half an hour after the exam started, the 9th class remained silent in the face of the shock and anger on the faces of those guys, and express understanding of this. I thought I was working very hard, but in the end I was fighting against the heir. The most important thing is that these are all said in front of the owner. It's so embarrassing. First of all, congratulations to everyone for passing the second exam. At 12:40, the invigilator of the second session stood up first. Next, I would like to ask the third Hokage to explain to you the rules of the third exam. Please listen carefully. After speaking, he turned around and bowed his head slightly towards the main podium. Then, Hokage-sama, I'll leave it to you. The third Hokage nodded, and then walked to the front of the main podium under the gaze of everyone. As usual, I cough first, then take a puff of my old cigarette to remind everyone that class is about to start. Before explaining the rules of the third game, I think there is one thing that needs to be made clear to you first, and that is the real purpose of this exam. After hearing this sentence, most of the candidates had puzzled looks on their faces. Isn't the Chunin exam just for selecting Chunin? What other purpose could it have? Have any of you ever thought about why so many villages need to be united to take the exam? Isn't it to increase the friendship between the villages? One of the Konoha candidates from the other team shouted loudly. Although Tsunade didn't say anything, he couldn't help but nodded after hearing it, and he obviously thought so. Even Izumi and Hyuga Takuma. Only Senju Mayuki showed no reaction at all. He couldn't give a specific answer, but he remembered that it must be related to things like showing the strength of the village and competing for the number of tasks. You are right to say that, but it is not everything. Speaking of this, the third Hokage took a long breath of smoke, and after a while, he continued to say under the gaze of all the candidates, in fact, this exam is a microcosm of the war between the allied powers. What? What does this mean? There was some commotion in the group of candidates below. However, the third Hokage didn't pay attention, but with a flick of his tongue, the class started. You all know that there have been several large-scale wars between countries in history, and after each war, it took a long time for each country to restore its national strength. In order to avoid such a lose-lose situation from happening again, the joint Chunin examination came into being to transfer the disputes between countries to this small venue. In addition to the function of selecting Chunin, this exam is also a stage where ninjas from all over the world fight with their lives to show their national prestige. At the venue of the third exam, there will be many famous names and princes and nobles from many countries coming to watch. These audiences hold a large amount of entrusted tasks and funds. If there is a big difference in strength, then the stronger country will receive more tasks and favors in the future, and it will also be able to take more initiative and subsequent diplomacy with neighboring countries. But, after hearing this, Quan suddenly couldn't help but ask, even so, the candidates don't have to fight with their lives, right? This remark immediately aroused the approval of many candidates. They all understood the death consent form signed before. After all, it is such a dangerous place, and casualties are possible. But I have never thought about actively killing my opponent. Don't misunderstand what I mean. The third Hokage's expression gradually became serious. This exam is a stage to show the strength of one's country's ninjas to others, and the strength of ninjas can only be fully demonstrated in desperate battles. This is a battle of risking one's life for one's own dreams and the prestige of the country, so it has a more sacred and noble meaning. The scene fell silent for a moment. His own performance will actually determine the future of the entire country. Thinking of this sentence, every candidate felt that the burden on their shoulders suddenly became extremely heavy. Can't lose. Never lose. Even death. He will also die on the stage of battle. Seeing the little guy's increasingly solemn expressions, the third Hokage couldn't help but nodded secretly. Unlike the previous two exams, the third exam is a one-on-one battle based on individuals. What? All the candidates' eyes instantly turned to the leftmost column. That guy is so strong. I also rested for several days. Who can beat him one-on-one with his current tired state? Oh, right. Seemingly aware of their concerns, the third Hokage reminded him again. After all, they represent the fighting strength of their respective countries. For the sake of fairness, the third game will be held in 1 month. What we need to do now is to finalize the game list first. This month is not only to give you a rest, but also to allow you to take good care of your opponents. Be prepared. Senju Mayuki was confused for a moment. No first qualifier? But when I think about it carefully, I think it makes sense. With 12 people, the Manchu Communist Party can only make up 6 groups of opponents. The battle between ninjas usually ends quickly. If the number of people is small, the audience will come so far to watch it turn on the display. At this time, the examiner of the second session took over the following work at the signal of the third Hokage. Following his order, a stone slab suddenly buzzed up on the wall behind the huge handprint, revealing a huge electronic display. 2 names will be randomly displayed on this display screen, and the selected list will be the lineup for the official match 1 month later. After a brief explanation, the examiner then said to the headset, "Start." Beep 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 deng. Jilian vs Ying Shahu. Quan followed the crowd's gaze and looked. Both of them are from Konoha. Group. Hyuga Takuma vs Mizusawa Hirokichi Group. Izumi Uchiha vs. 4th Group. 5th Group. Senju Mayuki vs. True Tree. All the candidates' eyes turned to the girl from Tsunade village. In fact, when the list of the 5th group came out, some people were already gloating about the misfortune, and some began to worry. Izumi winked at Senju Mayuki with an expression that she didn't know what it meant. Oh, it's the student of the Tsunade female jounin, and she's still a girl. Silence. Silence is gold. So, the third Hokage took another puff of cigarette. The list will be sent to the daimyo and princes of various countries immediately. In the month before the audience arrives, please work harder and improve. Chapter 66. Feelings are not just asking for money. Senju Mayuki vs. Maki. Although almost all of them were little known minor characters in the past, when it comes to the background of this group of opponents and their representative significance, many people have become very interested in this game. One is a descendant of an old family in Konoha village in the ninja god Senju Hashirama. One is a student of Yi Kang, the new hero of Sand Hidden Village and the burning escaped bloodstained ninja. Established vs newcomers. Konoha vs Tsunade. Interesting. This is so much fun. Many daimyo and famous nobles who received the competition list, after understanding the meaning behind it, said that they would definitely go to Konoha village to observe it live. And these snowflakes of reply letters also gave the leadership of Konoha village greater confidence, and they increasingly felt that this exam must be successfully held no matter what. Then I'll go to the training ground first. After lunch, Senju Mayuki said hello to Nona as usual, and prepared to go out. Because the third game is an individual competition, and is of extraordinary significance, now Izumi and Hyuga Takuma have returned to the clan, and are personally coached by the senior jounin of the clan. Izumi refused at the beginning, because she wanted to train with Senju Mayuki. However, the elders of the clan put her off with just one word. Senju Shinetsu. Senju Shinetsu. I know Senju Shinetsu all day long. That little kid doesn't have the Sharingan, so he's going to teach you a hammer lesson. Oh, okay. Nonoyo seemed to be distracted just now. After he finished speaking, he waited for a while, before she suddenly came back to her senses and responded, continuing to wash the dishes in her hands. Seeing her like this, Senju Mayuki couldn't help but frown slightly. This isn't the first time I've seen her like this. You know everything with your butt. There must be something going on in this woman's heart. It's just that Nonoyo came out from the root. If she doesn't want to take the initiative to say it, it's really hard to ask her what happened. With this thought in mind, he closed the door with his hand. After hesitating for a moment, he did not go towards the training ground this time, but galloped all the way towards the orphanage. What he thought was simple. Anyway, I can't calm down now that I'm worried about training, so I might as well go to the orphanage and see if I can find anything. Because for Nonoe now, the only things that can affect her mind are those children. With my current foot strength, it wouldn't take much time to get from the village to the orphanage. Why are you here again? The house is still the same house. The children playing outside are still those children. The difference was that the old scholar was telling a few little kids something under the shade. When he saw him coming, he immediately smiled and said hello to him. Zenyu is here, Grandpa Kemp. Kemp is the name of the old scholar. He is an old man who is kind to everyone. Children like him very much. Kemp smiled and pushed the children aside to play, and then asked Senju Mayuki to come over and sit down. I heard from the dean a few days ago that you achieved very good results in the Chunin exams. The old man hasn't congratulated you yet after a few pleasantries. Kemp asked in a friendly voice, what are you doing here? Although I may not be able to help you, but you can tell me what you want to say, even if it's just spiritual. The old man will definitely support you. Haha. Senju Mayuki reluctantly twitched the corner of her mouth, then looked at him seriously and asked, Grandpa Kemp, do you know what Nonoe has been worried about recently? I have seen her often these days, as if she is distracted. This question made Kemp silent for a moment, and then he got up and walked into the house. Come with me. Seeing his reaction, Senju Mayuki's heart immediately began to sink a little, and all kinds of bad things and thoughts began to emerge uncontrollably. Quack, the door opened, just in time to see the female worker come out with a basin of dirty clothes. She was stunned for a moment when she saw Senju Mayuki, then nodded to him and left. Sit down. The children are outside and the house is empty now. Senju Mayuki was not polite and sat down across the table across from Kemp. Alas. It starts from that night a few days ago. On July 7th, when Senju Mayuki was in the tower, several men in black robes walked into the orphanage and proposed that Nonoe go to Iwagakure village for a long espionage operation. At first, Nonoe rejected them without hesitation, because the children have grown up a lot now, and with the care of the Third Hokage, the orphanage is no longer short of money. Even if the other party is Danzo, the leader of the route, she no longer has to be commanded like before. But what they never expected was that in order to achieve his goal, Danzo would allow his subordinates to use the children's personal safety as a threat. Shameless, mean. However, even if he was cursed like this, Danzo didn't care at all. He just said sadly, don't make any mistake, as long as you can protect Konoha, this price is not worth mentioning. Then, just when Nonoe could no longer bear the pressure and was about to agree, the man in black robe who had been sitting on Danzo's right suddenly spoke. It's not impossible if you really don't want to go, but we have to choose a child from you as a supplementary person. Danzo turned his head and looked over, obviously not expecting that he would suddenly say this. But I don't know what I was thinking about, but after watching silently for a while, I didn't interrupt. How's it going? A pretty good deal, right? The man's voice was hoarse, and Nonoe had not turned her attention away from Danzo until now. However, when she looked at him, she was so shocked that she subconsciously clenched her hands. Orochimaru. How could he appear with Danzo? And it seems like he still thinks of himself as Gen! Exclamation mark. But whether Orochimaru or Danzo wanted her to exchange her child for her freedom, there was no need to even think about it. No, choose me. The window behind him was suddenly opened, and a childish voice came in. Kabuto, why are you here? Nonoe's brows instantly knitted up. Damn it, I was so focused on Danzo that I didn't even notice that the kid was listening right next to me. I'm sorry, Dean. I broke the rules again. The boy who jumped in from the window showed a sweet smile to Nonoe, then walked to Orochimaru, looked at him and asked, I'll go with you, okay? Kabuto, come back quickly, how could I let you? Dean. Kabuto turned around, his face still so happy. Emotions are not just requests. I have been thinking about what I can do for the Dean, so please don't stop me. After saying that, he turned to look at Orochimaru again, and he is Master Orochimaru. He once said that I'm suitable to be a ninja. I also want to become strong like that child, and then protect the Dean and the orphanage in my own way. After learning the news from Kemp, Senju Mayuki didn't stay any longer and left silently. Orochimaru joined the route. Has there ever been a plot like this in anime? No matter how hard he scratched his head, he couldn't remember which episode contained the scenes Kemp mentioned. Zuo, maybe I saw the memory barrage at the beginning again, and jumped to it again. After leaving the orphanage, I felt like I didn't want to go anywhere, so I walked aimlessly along the road alone, thinking about some messy things in my mind. Actually speaking, he didn't find it that difficult to accept Kabuto's volunteering, because he remembered that, even after entering Sage Mode, Kabuto still insisted on wearing the pair of glasses given by Nonao. From this point of view, it is obvious that Nono's significance and influence on Kabuto cannot be replaced by anyone, not even Orochimaru, the master of child abduction. Therefore, as long as Nono is still alive, there is no need to worry about Kabuto going astray. Rather, he might actually want to see this result in his heart. After all, only the experienced spy Kabuto is a real dream master. If he had stayed in the orphanage to help, then he might just be named Yakushi Kabuto in this life. The problem is that Orochimaru's move was somewhat unexpected. Although I don't understand why he stopped Danzo from non-forcing Gao, but this also sounded the alarm for Senju Mayuki. We have to speed up the pace of improving our strength and influence. Otherwise, if Danzo comes to trouble Nonao again in the future, he can't point his finger at Orochimaru again. Chapter 67 Is Tsunade stupid? I practiced for half an afternoon with a lot of worries. During dinner, he didn't reveal anything in front of Nonao. He still pretended to be concentrating on training, and didn't notice anything. But when I went to Tsunade's house for daily practice at night, some thoughts came into my mind. So after hearing the sound of Tsunade coming back, I didn't continue to work hard, but went to the front hall with Shizune. Ever since he returned from the mission to the Kingdom of the Sea, he had discovered that Tsunade would often disappear for a whole day, and Shizune was basically in charge of the evening exercises. Every time I come back, it's almost 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, and I'm always shouting that I'm exhausted. Shizune, hurry up and get a drink. Master Tsunade. When I arrived at the front hall, I happened to see Tsunade lying facelessly on the sofa, humming Shizune. Tsunade raised her head in surprise, glanced at it, and then banged it on the sofa cushions with an angry voice. What are you doing out here? If you don't practice medical ninjutsu, do you feel you're good enough and want to move on to the next level? No. Senju Mayuki shook her head and tried her best to control her gaze not to look at the lump of fat that was almost crumbling beside the sofa. I just have some questions. If Tsunade-sama knows, I hope you can tell me. What, you brat? Can't you wait until practice is over to talk about something? I'm tired now. After saying that, he yelled at Shizune in dissatisfaction. What are you doing standing there? Why don't you go get some wine? Yes, I'm going right now. Seeing Shizune running out in a hurry, Senju Mayuki couldn't help but cursed in her heart. Why don't you wait until the break is over before asking? Don't you have some wave numbers in your heart? When I came out from practice, you were drunk like a crazy woman. When Shizune walked away, he didn't make any more detours, walked directly to the sofa and asked softly, Tsunade-sama, do you have any news you can tell me about Orochimaru's existence? The humming sound stopped suddenly. After a while, Tsunade stood up tremblingly, then lay back and leaned on the sofa. Her face looked very calm, but Senju Mayuki always felt like she was suppressing something. Orochimaru joined Gen. Where did you get the news? As for why this little guy knew about such a deeply hidden organization, Tsunade could understand. After all, the girl named Nonoid came from the root. With this little guy's intelligence, it's not surprising that he would find out some things. In the past few days, I have noticed that Nonoe is always distracted. I asked her, but she just shook her head and said nothing to me. After seeing her lost look again at noon today, I couldn't bear it anymore. So I went to the orphanage and asked an old man named Kemp in the orphanage, and then I found out what happened. What? Grandpa Kemp told me that Nonoe actually told them to keep it a secret from me. It's just that they were really angry, and they heard that my popularity in the village has become quite popular recently, so they decided to tell the secret. They also hoped that I could think of some solution or something. Senju Mayuki didn't speak fast, and Tsunade just listened quietly. She knew that this little guy wouldn't talk meaningless nonsense when he was serious. On the night of July 7th, 3 men wearing black clothes went to the orphanage. As soon as they opened their mouth, they said that they wanted Nunoi to go to Tsunagakure village to perform a long-term undercover mission. After simply repeating the news she heard from camp, Senju Mayuki looked at Tsunade with a pleading look. At Tsunade-sama, you are a senin as famous as Orochimaru, and you are his former teammate. Do you know the reason why he would rather take Kabuto away? If you know, could you please tell me? Because of Kabuto's departure, Nonoi was haunted every day. I'm really worried about her. After listening to what he said, Tsunade did not say a word, but her face became obviously gloomier. Orochimaru, roots. Danzo, human experiments. Thinking of the little siren that the Anbu brought back from Onigashima Research Institute that I have been studying recently, and then thinking about the old man's attitude towards this matter, Tsunade suddenly had a realization in her heart. Now it seems that research institute must be related to Orochimaru. Maybe it was established by him. That medical ninja named Chion's he is just a scapegoat who was pushed out. The old man must also know about this, but he didn't make it public, even hiding it from me. As for Orochimaru, the old man probably didn't deal with it, but during the process, I don't know what reasons or conditions Danzo used to protect him, so Orochimaru joined the route. Is Tsunade stupid? Certainly not. Many times, she just doesn't care about some things, or is too lazy to think about them. As the most awesome medical ninja in the entire ninja world, whoever really thinks that is the real fool. As for why Danzo kept Orochimaru, this is easy to understand. That gloomy old guy has never hidden his coveting for the position of Hokage. He must be dissatisfied with the old man's approach of taking over immediately after Minato's death, so he took the initiative to show his favor to Orochimaru at this time. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Since the old man wants to deal with Orochimaru, if Danzo steps in to win over him at this time, it will naturally have the effect of getting twice the result with half the effort. That's why he was so tolerant. Even if Orochimaru disrupted the plan in front of him, he didn't say a word. It was said that he joined the route, but in fact it was a cooperative relationship. Thinking of this, Tsunade's expression became even more solemn. She crossed her arms over her chest, which was her habit when thinking. In fact, I used to point my fingers at my arms when I thought of key points, but then the pressure in the middle area became more and more intense, and now I can no longer lift my fingers. That's why Orochimaru must take away the kid named Kabuto. Thinking of the little sea monster called Uhuo that she had been studying every day recently, Tsunade felt a sudden irritation in her heart. That guy Orochimaru. We must go to the opposite side of everyone. Seeing the expectant look in Senju Mayuki's eyes, Tsunade suddenly became even more angry, but she couldn't say this to outsiders, so she had to say something perfunctory. Didn't the little guy named Kabuto say that he wants to become a powerful ninja like you, so that he can protect the orphanage? And from your description, that little guy is quite clever and must have his own plan. Don't worry about it. I just said that, but in fact, what I was thinking in my heart was that I must find a chance to have a good talk with Orochimaru. Let's not talk about whether we can bring him back to the right path. At the very least, we can't let him go further and further on the path of anti-humanity. Even though the old man is smiling with everyone now, if he is really angry, let alone him and Danzo, even if 2 senior advisors are added, it won't be enough. Alright. Hearing what she said, Senju Mayuki could only nodded with some disappointment, and then turned back to the room where she practiced medical ninjutsu. Of course he saw Tsunade's perfunctory attitude, but fortunately, his initial purpose was not to inquire about anything from Tsunade, but to reveal to her that someone was targeting the orphanage. This would make her more sensitive and educated about this matter in the future. Be careful, no way, it still takes time for your own growth, and before that, Tsunade, who is relatively concerned about him, a junior of his own race, is undoubtedly his biggest support in this village. Chapter 68. The Uchiha rally is incredible. What would the patriarch do to me? In the Uchiha clan, Izumi followed Itachi into the clan leader's door. Just now, she was practicing Sharingan with the elders, but Itachi suddenly ran over and said, "The clan leader is looking for Uchiha Izumi," and then took her away with the consent of the elders. I don't know either. He just suddenly told me to come find him. He seemed to have something to tell us. Itachi was walking in front. Although his voice was calm, his slightly furrowed eyebrows showed that he was also doubtful about this. Oh. Quan nodded. If Itachi didn't know, there was nothing he could do. He could only wait and see what the patriarch said. When they arrived at the main room, they saw Uchiha Fugaku sitting on the main seat with his eyes closed, one hand on the table next to him, and he was still knocking on it, obviously thinking about something. Father, I have brought Uchiha Raizumi. After entering the house, Itachi took the first step forward and bowed his head to report. Uchiha Fugaku slowly opened his eyes. His stern square face made him look quite calm and confident. Hello, Patriarch. Quan, who rarely faced such occasions, quickly greeted him. Uchiha Fugaku nodded. His eyes stayed on each of them for a while, and then stood up and said, come with me. Izumi and Itachi couldn't help but look at each other. However, Uchiha Fugaku's steps were very long, and he had already walked out of the house in a few steps. The two of them had no choice but to put away their doubts and quickly follow him. I thought I was just changing rooms to talk, but I didn't expect that. After leaving the house, Uchiha Fugaku walked directly out of the yard and onto the street. And he didn't explain anything along the way, he just walked forward silently. Quan was even more confused, but no one spoke, and it was hard for her to speak, so she had to follow closely behind. At 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, it was supposed to be time to prepare for rest. However, along the way, Quan saw some adults from the clan walking quickly in the same direction from time to time. She could clearly see that when those people saw her and Itachi, surprise flashed across their faces. They just looked at the clan leader without saying anything, and then quickly disappeared in front of them. Unlike her, as the distance progressed, Itachi's eyes gradually became somewhat solemn. Until Uchiha Fugaku, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and looked up at the top of the steps. The two finally showed completely different expressions on their faces. Naga Shrine, what are you doing here at this time? The fountain is doubt, so it's here. What Shizu once said about the secret gatherings that Uchiha clan ninjas often attend came to mind. Uchiha Fugaku began to walk up again without saying a word, and Izumi and Itachi had no choice but to continue to follow. When we got here, we could see more Uchiha ninjas coming over. Everyone nodded when they saw them, and then hurriedly entered the shrine. Following the crowd into the main hall, Izumi and Itachi were immediately surprised to see that under a tatami that had been lifted, there was a dark passage leading to an unknown place. The ninjas who rushed over were at this moment. One after another entered the passage. When I saw these springs, I could hardly contain my doubts. But the patriarch still didn't speak. He just watched the Uchiha ninjas go in one after another. When no more ninjas came in from outside, he said to the two of them in a deep voice, don't say anything once you get in, just listen. Then he took the lead and walked into the somewhat dim passage peaceful. Although the footsteps of the three people echoed in the passage, Quan still only felt the deathly silence around him. Fortunately, the passage was not long, and soon it suddenly opened up and entered an underground space that was not very large. At this time, it was already full of people. But the problem is, since there are only a few small braziers lit in the four corners, everyone looks like a black shadow. When they saw these densely packed people sitting and kneeling together, they all suddenly turned their heads. Looking at their faces, that were dim and bright under the flickering candlelight, they turned into excitement and fanaticism when they saw who was coming. This weird atmosphere made Quan instantly feel that the hairs all over his body stood on end. She had never thought about how the ninjas in the clan who usually seemed so friendly could suddenly become so weird. Compared with her, Itachi's performance was better, but those fists that had been clenched and trembling slightly showed that he was not at peace in his heart. Just sit back and listen. After leaving such a sentence, Uchiha Fugaku walked from the side of the crowd to the front. Yes. According to the clan leader's request, Quan and Itachi sat down at the back of the crowd. But facing the ninjas around him who looked over excitedly to express their welcome, Itachi was a little better, with an expressionless face, and would nod his head whenever he caught his eye. Quan burst into tears. It was very difficult to keep smiling and not cry. Now she really felt uncomfortable everywhere in her body. Until now, she couldn't believe that these weird guys were actually the Uchiha ninjas who usually smiled and greeted her. Regular meetings will now begin. As the clan leader, Uchiha Fugaku naturally had to sit at the front, face to face with everyone. After hearing his order, a white-haired middle-aged ninja sitting next to him immediately said, "Starting from today, Lord Fugaku's son, Itachi, and another very outstanding Uchiha genius, Izumi, will also begin to attend regular meetings." Izumi knew that this white-haired ninja seemed to be named Uchiha Yashiro, and he was a member of the Konoha guards. He could sit next to the clan leader and preside over clan meetings, so he obviously had certain abilities. Uchiha Fugaku took over the words at this time. Although Itachi and Izumi are already genin and qualified to participate in the meeting, they are still very young. I just wanted to let them understand the current situation of our clan from a young age, so I called them here and asked you to take care of them. After speaking, he bowed his head slightly to everyone, and the others quickly bowed their heads in response. So, after everyone straightened up, Uchiha Yashiro directly stated the content of this meeting, continuing the topic from the last regular meeting. What we are going to discuss this time is the issue of proposing a submission to the Hokage on the issue of isolating the Uchiha clan from Konoha. As soon as Uchiha Yashiro finished speaking, Izumi heard the whole room suddenly filled with buzzing sounds. Some people shouted "We are the proud Uchiha," and believed that a tough attitude should be taken against the village's senior officials. Some people also think that looking around with a melancholy face and constantly telling the people next to us that we can't be so impulsive, we should calmly judge the situation and take steps step by step. Of course, there are also some people who don't say anything and just secretly observe everyone's faces, seeming to be considering which side to support. Although they have different ideas and opinions, everyone seems to have a very positive attitude towards this meeting and seems to really want to change the current situation of the Uchiha clan in Konoha village through such a meeting. Looking at such a scene, seeing the adult ninjas in front of me expressing their opinions with high spirits and foaming at the mouth, and even blatantly speaking some taboo language, Quan suddenly felt a very strange and frightening feeling in his heart. Could it be that this is the real Uchiha? At this moment, Izumi almost panicked at the word Uchiha clan. In fact, it wasn't just her. Itachi also felt disbelief and disgust at what was happening in front of him, but now he was speaking in a low voice, and he knew that no one would listen to what he said, so he just watched silently. At this moment, Itachi suddenly felt a line of sight, and immediately turned his head to look over. It's Shizu. Only then did a smile appear on Itachi's face. He could see that Shizu seemed unable to integrate into this noisy atmosphere. Their eyes met in the air. From his friend's smiling expression, Itachi felt an indescribable loneliness, anger, dissatisfaction, extreme. All the negative emotions of the Uchiha clan are gathered here. I feel the same as you. Itachi returned a smile to Shizu, which contained his most sincere thoughts and feelings. Who is he looking at? Following Itachi's line of sight, Izumi saw a young ninja who was older than himself and Itachi. It's him, Shunshin Shizu. Of course she also knew this young hero of the Uchiha clan, but these two men are here. You look at me, and I look at you. Still. He even laughed. Quan's eyes suddenly widened. Did I discover something extraordinary? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69. Everyone has their own growth. Are you sure you want to teach him the 64 Bagua palms? Wouldn't this be breaking the rules of the clan? In the Hyuga clan, in a closed room, the contemporary clan leader Hyuga Hisashi was discussing matters related to Hyuga Takuma with a group of clan elders. Hearing this question, the room fell into silence for a moment. After all, it is related to the rules of the clan and the branch family. If you are not careful, you may say the wrong thing. In serious cases, it may even cause the conflict between the two parties to intensify. Therefore, everyone will think carefully before speaking. Of course I have to teach. Just when everyone was frowning and weighing the pros and cons, the square-faced elder sitting on the right side of Hinata and Hinata spoke with his hands folded. The third generation's regard for Shikaku's team is now a fact known to the entire village. The square-faced elder spoke slowly. As he spoke, he scanned everyone in the room with his eyes. Finally, he tilted his head slightly and looked at Hinata Hinashi. You have also heard what Takuma said. One of the two dolls is Ice Release Bloodstain, and Tsunade is carefully guiding them. The other is being given special training in the Sharingan by the elders of their clan. And from that list of duels, as well as some recent actions in the village, I believe anyone who is not a fool can definitely see the third generation's intentions and determination for the third exam. On such an important and grand occasion, how can we members of the Hyuga clan perform mediocrely? Having said this, the square-faced elder's calm expression showed a hint of anger for the first time. You haven't forgotten the mission report from the Kingdom of the Sea last time, right? The fact is that people outside now only know Uchiha's Sharingan, and no one still remembers the reputation of Hinata's Byakugan. So this third exam is not only a stage for the third Hokage to demonstrate the power of Konoha, but also an opportunity for us, the Hyuga clan, to show our claws to the outside world. As soon as these words came out, several other people immediately nodded with serious expressions. Although these words made them feel uncomfortable, the last mission report of Hyuga Takuma also fully reflected this point. When faced with a Sharingan, all the wandering ninjas were so frightened that they looked away, even if the opponent was just a 7 or 8-year-old girl. As for the older Hyuga Takuma, the group of people all adopted a ignoring attitude. Thinking of these people, they immediately felt the anger in their hearts rising up all of a sudden, including the clan leader Hinata Hizu, who all bowed their heads to the square-faced elder. The elder taught you this. We will definitely do our best to teach Takuma. Hyuga Takuma is going to learn the 64 Bagua palms. On July 7th, a day that was nothing special, Senju Mayuki and Izumi suddenly received invitations from teammates at the same time. It is a decision that breaks tradition when people from a separated family are taught the family's secrets on their own initiative, so I hope these two teammates can come and bear witness. That guy Takuma is really good. They met Izumi in the park in the middle of the village. As soon as they met Senju Mayuki, she expressed her opinion in a somewhat unbelievable way. It must be the first time in the history of Konoha that the Hyuga clan, who are known for their stubbornness, can break the rules for him. You must know that, even though he felt so guilty about Hisashi who died for him, Hyuga Hisashi did not break the rules for Hyuga Niji. That's why I was so shocked when I saw Niji using the 64 Bagua palms in Kaishin, and even had self-doubt for a while. It's just that Quan didn't seem to be in a high mood today. He didn't have any reaction when he heard what he said. He just muttered thoughtfully in a low voice, "Stubborn, are you stubborn?" In fact, in recent times, her mind has always been thinking about the regular meeting of the clan that she attended that night. The behavior displayed by those ninjas of the same clan can no longer be described as stubborn, but can be said to be crazy. And the purpose of the clan leader Uchiha Fugaku asking her to attend the regular meeting, do you know why I specifically asked you to come to this regular meeting? It was past 10 o'clock in the evening when the regular meeting ended that day, but Uchiha Fugaku still did not leave immediately. Instead, after everyone left, he left her alone and asked such a question. It's just that during the meeting, I was thinking about some strange things, so I couldn't think of what to say to the patriarch's question. Fortunately, Uchiha Fugaku didn't keep her here just to test her. Seeing her silence, he continued speaking alone. This is the current situation of Uchiha: anger at not being trusted by the village, dissatisfaction at being isolated from the center of the village, blindness immersed in the glory of the past. After speaking, the voice changed again. Did you know? You, team, actually carry the third Hokage's commitment and attitude towards the Uchiha clan. Lord Hokage, he also. Uchiha Fugaku raised his hand to stop Izumi's surprise, asking her to calm down and listen to what he said. Actually, not long ago, I was also very dissatisfied with the top management of Konoha, because on the night of the Kyuubi rebellion, our clan, as a vital security force, was asked not to go near the battlefield and could only protect the old, weak, women and children in the rear. I knew at that time that the conflict between the Uchiha and the village had become serious to an almost irreconcilable level. But as the clan leader, I had to consider the people of the clan and not allow this conflict to intensify and develop further. If it was just that one time, forget it. Whether it was toughness or persuasion, I finally suppressed the emotions of the clan members. But I never expected that not long after that, the higher-ups would rush our clan here again. Although the explanation given by the village is that all the families have been relocated due to replanning, this place is too far from the center of the village. No matter how hard I try, I can no longer suppress the clan members from thinking that this is the village's defense against Uchiha. The cry. Speaking of this, Uchiha Fugaku's voice fluctuated slightly, so I simply stopped and gave the little girl in front of me some time to digest and understand. After a while, I heard Quan's fearful and uneasy voice. Master Patriarch, you. Why are you telling me this? Because of your team, and because of your relationship with Senju Mayuki. Little. Senju Mayuki? Does our clan's affairs have anything to do with him? Don't be so excited now. The point I'm talking about is not about him, but about you, and the relationship between you. Uchiha Fugaku once again comforted Izumi, who was a little stressed, and waited until she calmed down before continuing, although I knew at that time that the abnormalities within the clan would definitely not be hidden from the eyes of the Third Hokage. I had no other good solution. I could only drag down the clan's emotions while thinking of ways to resolve the conflicts between Uchiha and the village. Until one day last year, the Third Hokage suddenly found me with a document. Uchiha Fugaku roughly recounted the content of the conversation that day in as calm a tone as possible. Of course, he definitely didn't say anything about arranging their future lives. He just said that he made an agreement with the Third Hokage. I want to see if Senju and Uchiha can return to the sincere relationship between the first Hokage and Uchiha Madara without any external factors. If it is possible, when class grows up, Uchiha's problems will naturally be solved. And what he and the Third Hokage need to do is to maintain a delicate balance between them until then. Actually, according to the agreement, I shouldn't have told you this. But because of your recent outstanding performance, many tribesmen have become more aggressive and aggressive. They almost regard you as an important bargaining chip in future negotiations with the village. That's why I thought, instead of letting you be deceived by the tribe without knowing it in the future, it's better to actively involve you and use your own eyes to see and judge what to do in the future. As a clan leader, I can't guarantee the interests of my clan members, and I even have to rely on you who are still young. I'm really incompetent as a patriarch. With every word he spoke, the darkness on Uchiha Fugaku's face became darker. In the end, he even lowered his head deeply to Izumi and said with an extremely heavy voice, "But for the future of the clan, I still want to ask you, for the sake of Uchiha, please work harder in the future." Chapter 70 How to Eat Lolly. At the entrance of the Hyuga tribe, after meeting Hyuga Takuma who came to greet him, in order to avoid trouble, Senju Mayuki couldn't help but ask, "I said, isn't it that you want to learn the secrets of your Hyuga clan? Wouldn't it be a bit uncomfortable to let two outsiders like us come over to see it?" "It's okay." Hinata Takuma, who was leading the way, shook his head, but his voice did not sound like he was being polite. The 64 Bagua palms are soft fist techniques that need to be used in conjunction with Byakugan. Even if you learn the principles, you still won't be able to use them. Senju Mayuki followed smoothly. In fact, his eyes were more looking at the scenery in the Hyuga clan's territory, and he didn't really care about what he said. Anyway, as long as he knew not to violate their taboos, he would be fine. "It's nothing. Let's go quickly. The clan leader and elders are already waiting." Clan leader? And the elders? Senju Mayuki was really surprised this time. Putting aside everything else, this teaching team alone can already tell how much the Hyuga clan values this guy. Also, it seems that the current head of the Hyuga clan is Hyuga Hinatsu, right? So will the teaching place be at his home? If so, doesn't that mean we might see Hinata soon? TSK 1 or 2-year-old little Hinata, what will it be like? She should still be pretty cute. With this idea in mind, the three of them quickly walked outside a courtyard under the curious gaze of the Hyuga tribe. "You are here. The two young ninjas standing at the door first nodded to the two guests, and then one of them said to Hyuga Takuma, "Hurry in, the patriarch and elders are already waiting." After saying hello, Hinata Takuma led the two of them to speed up the pace, and soon saw several men in loose robes standing in the open space outside the house waiting. The guy in the middle should be Hinata Hinatsu. Not only the position, but also the momentum is a little different from others. After the three of them got closer, they saw Hinata Takuma bowing to the middle-aged man and saying, "Hello, Lord Patriarch, the teammates from class have arrived." Hinata Hayashi nodded. His eyes stayed on Senju Mayuki and Izumi for a while respectively, and nodded seriously to each of them, and then said, "Two guests, next we need to explain to Takuma the key points and precautions of the 64 bag Wazang. This may take a while. If you feel bored, you can ask him to take you to visit the yard, or go. It's okay to rest in the house for a while." As soon as he finished speaking, a young ninja stood up next to him. Hinata Hizu nodded to the two of them at the end, and then he and several elders took Hyuga Takuma into the training room next to him. "Two guests, do you want me to show you around the yard?" The young tour guide had a very good attitude, and did not look down upon Senju Mayuki and Izumi, because of their height and age. "Okay, then I'll trouble you." Seeing that Izumi didn't express his position, Senju Mayuki agreed. After all, this is the home of the head of the Hyuga clan, so we don't always have this opportunity. This is the front yard, with some rockeries and landscapes scattered around. The patriarch often likes to stay here. The young tour guide followed the steps of the two guests as much as possible, and introduced them to every item he glanced at. This is the backyard, where some commonly used medicines are grown. Of course, sometimes I will also plant some flowers that the clan leader and Hinata-sama like. When we arrived in the backyard, when we saw the figures of one large and one small playing with flowers by the flower bed, for the first time there was a look other than calmness on the young tour guide's face. He looked a little happy, more like a little proud. "Is that little girl Hinata? The little loli is indeed the most beautiful creature in the world." Even Kwan, who has never been very interested, suddenly became energetic at this time. Yes. When he mentioned Hinata, the young tour guide's eyes seemed to start to shine. "Hinata-sama is the daughter of the clan leader and the cutest princess in our clan." Kwan's head slightly violently several times. "Then I can." She looked at the tour guide and then at Hinata, her face full of anticipation and desire. This meaning couldn't be more obvious. "I want to masturbate a little lolly." "What?" The young tour guide looked a little embarrassed. "Hinata-sama is not our captive cub, and it is not up to him," the little tour guide, "to decide whether he can be masturbated." But thinking that these two were guests invited by the patriarch, he could only vaguely, "If Hinata-sama is willing." Before he could say anything, people had already rushed out. Senju Mayuki and the young tour guide glanced at each other, smiled awkwardly at each other, and had no choice but to follow behind. "Excuse me?" The maid was also very young, but when she saw the sudden appearance of Izumi, she immediately protected Hinata behind her. She did see Kwan's forehead protector, but she still did her job, and didn't let down her guard. Looking at Hinata, who was hiding behind the maid's legs, with only half of her face exposed, Izumi felt like her heart was about to turn into cuteness. "We are Hyuga Takuma's teammates. They are guests invited by the patriarch." Fortunately, the young tour guide followed up at this time, and proved that they were not intruders. "Oh, so that's it." The maid then lowered her guard. When she saw Izumi looking at Hinata with bright eyes, her attitude immediately changed 180 degrees, while she and Izumi excitedly discussed 18 things about Lolita, how to eat it, while pulling Hinata out from behind. "Hinata-sama, they are guests invited by the clan leader, so they must not be rude." After listening to the maid's words, I always felt that something was wrong with their expressions, but how could a 2-year-old child know so much? So I had to introduce myself shyly but seriously at the urging of the maid. Hello. My name is Hinata. Ash is too cute." Looking at Hinata, who retracted behind the maid's legs after introducing herself, Kwan felt even more adorable. She just felt like she just wanted to hold this little lolly in her arms and kiss her for a few times. Just speak loudly. But fortunately, she just thought about it. Otherwise, if she really hugged him like this, Boruto's story of Tama would be over immediately, before he grew up. Hello, hello, my name is Uchiha Izumi. If you can't hug, you can't hug. It's always okay to say hello and squeeze your little hands. It could be seen that Hinata was very shy, but she still remembered what the maid said just now and mustered up the courage to stretch out her little hand. Hello. These little hands are too soft. Athisom too. Pinch, and this little facet's so soft and feels so comfortable to hold rub. Our little lolly is really so comfortable. No matter how much you play, it's never enough, young maid. Right. Hinata-sama is really cute, isn't it? It's really comfortable to hold a guy and use NIU. Young tour guide, you guys, Hinata-sama. Although I really don't want to disturb the cordial communication between the two ladies, but look at the tears that Hinata, as a tool, is holding back from shedding. He grabbed the arm of slut Izumi and pulled her up. Then he pressed her head under her dissatisfied gaze and apologized to the maid and Hinata. Then he called the young tour guide and left quickly. What an unlucky thing. You are an Uchiha. What about Gaoling? What about Grim? In just a moment, the image that your Uchiha ancestors have saved for decades will be completely defeated by you. Chapter 71. Hinata wants face. Bagua 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms. In the same courtyard, Hyuga Takuma was practicing the 64 Bagua palms that he had just been taught, accompanied by Hyuga Hisashi. Of course, it was said to be a sparring session, but Hinata were actually defending Hyuga Takuma's attacks throughout the whole process. The 64 Bagua palms are a secret technique of soft fist passed down by the Hyuga clan. Outside the court, several other young elders were watching the sparring attentively, while the square-faced elder was explaining to Senju Mayuki Izumi beside him. The trick is to release a large amount of chakra through the acupuncture points of both hands when attacking, and use the Byakugan to attack various key points on the enemy's body, in order to block the enemy's movement or directly kill him. We call this special attack method point pointing, and it is the unique fighting method of the Hyuga clan. Because if you want to see through and accurately attack the enemy's acupuncture points at any time in a fierce battle, only the Byakugan of our clan can do it in the entire ninja world. The square-faced elder's tone was very calm, because in his opinion this was the fact, and he didn't bother to brag in front of 2 children. And the reason why he, the great elder, needs to personally explain it on this occasion, is not only polite, but also because everything today is all based on his suggestion. Not only did Senju Mayuki and Izumi appear as witnesses, but the presence of all the clan leaders and elders was also his request. Why? Good question. There is a saying, just practice and don't talk about stupid moves. Team was organized by the Third Hokage himself, right? Narashikaku, the leading jonin, was personally appointed by the Third Hokage, right? Now, anyone who can think around a little knows that team will definitely be a hardcore Hokage in the future. Under this premise, since we all need to teach anyway, why not sell it well, and let the higher ups see that we, the Hyuga clan, absolutely firmly support Hokage-sama. Look, Hokage-sama, in order to support your decision, we even took the initiative to break the rules of the Hyuga clan that have been passed down for thousands of years. This sentence is the main purpose of today. Of course, you definitely can't say this in person. You have to let the people who want to know experience it for themselves. Even though this is the case, I still have to face it, mad who wanted to get angry just thinking about this square-faced elder. At the beginning, some people actually said what was the use of bringing 2 children over? Why not just bring Narashikaku over? They also said that his words as the leader of the team would carry more weight in the ears of the Third Hokage. You are a hammer. Who is Narashikaku? What kind of brain is that? And I brought him here. With all the tricks we have, you might as well just tell him, help us put in a good word in front of Hokage-sama. Or wouldn't it be better to simply pull the Third Hokage over and let him praise you on the spot? Why are you looking for a middleman? What a bunch of idiots. They are both elders, so why is there such a big gap? This is why he firmly abandoned others and stood up as a commentator himself. It is said that this furry child of the Senju family is not a good person. Those idiots, if they accidentally say something stupid and he notices something, then they, the old guys, will not be able to live anymore, and they might as well just jump into the river to apologize. Always keep in mind the core points of the 64 Bagua palms. In the field, Hinata Hayashi taught Hinata Takuma what to pay attention to while defending. In addition to releasing a large amount of chakra through the acupoints on both hands at the moment of attack, you must also have sharp and quick skills. Let's not talk about the amount of chakra. I just stood here and let you attack me for so long, and you didn't even touch me. From today on, your physical training will be doubled. Yes. As the target of being taught a lesson, Hyuga Takuma not only did not have any dissatisfaction, but nodded in agreement with an increasingly firm expression, and then made the starting move again regardless of exhaustion. Such a sparring team cannot be available every day, and he must seize this rare opportunity. I originally thought it was just a matter of teaching skills, but I didn't expect it to cause such a big scene. It seems that the Hyuga clan is determined to make a splash in the third exam. When we left, the sun had already begun to set in the west. On the way back, Senju Mayuki talked about some things that were difficult to say in the Hyuga clan. But I don't know why. Izumi, who was so excited when she was Rua Hinata, has returned to the preoccupied look before. Kwan, are you worried about something today? Since the relationship between the two was already quite close, he didn't shy away from it and asked directly. Kwan raised his head, looking like he wanted to say something, but was a little hesitant, but in the end he shook his head and said nothing. Now her mind was filled with things about the Uchiha clan, especially after her trip today. Her heart was even more confused. They were also moved to the outskirts of the village. The Uchiha clan members held meetings every 3 days to study how to resist and how to fight against Konoha's higher-ups. The people of the Hyuga clan are trying every means to show off their clan and actively move closer to the Hokage. They are both well-known and prominent families in Konoha village, but they have two completely different approaches when facing the same thing. Which one is right? Thinking of the sincere instructions from the patriarch that night, Kwan really didn't he know what to think. It's really nothing. Seeing Senju Mayuki's questioning eyes, Izumi just shook his head slightly. She didn't deliberately want to hide it, but these were matters within the Uchiha clan, so what was the use of telling him? It's just adding to one person's worries. However, I thought that my performance today was indeed a little different from usual. In order to prevent him from worrying anymore, I stretched my body and took a deep breath, and then I cheered up and regained my energy. It's fine. Then something must be wrong. But since she didn't want to say it, Senju Mayuki didn't want to press her anymore and was ready to go back and find time to find out for herself what happened. Then the two of them returned to their normal self, chatting about interesting things while walking. And under Senju Mayuki's deliberate teasing, Izumi soon really forgot all her worries and kept laughing her along the way. Hey, look, little Zenyu, there. Just when the two of them passed by a training ground at the edge of the village, Izumi, who was smiling happily, suddenly took Senju Mayuki's arm and winked at him to look inside. Look, isn't that the Tsunade female ninja you care about? The sand is hidden. A kunoichi is a kunoichi. What is a Tsunade kunoichi that I care about so much? Exclamation mark. You little girl has a very bad choice of words. Don't think that, just because you are cute, you can slander someone's innocence. Be careful if I sue you for libel. Although I really care about the girl who still wears her clothes inside out when she is so tall. But that's just out of humanitarian sympathy. I just want to teach her how to dress for free. There are absolutely no other meanings or ideas. Chapter 72. Small amount and many times. Sooner or later you will win. So it's you? The two people who were pushing each other outside the court quickly attracted Yi Kang's attention. After discovering that it was them, he immediately extended an invitation very politely. Hello, do you want to come and sit for a while? Since the round trip between Konoha and Tsunade village takes at least a week, and the road is not necessarily safe, so after considering the pros and cons, Yi Kang accepted the Third Hokage's suggestion and stayed in Konoha village. For this reason, the Third Hokage even planned a training ground for them to train. Now half a month has passed, and everyone in Tsunade said that the arrangement of the Third Hokage was really awesome. Secondly, the area is large, but the main reason is that the training equipment is very comprehensive, and due to the order of the Third Hokage, no one in the Leaf Village will stay or watch around the training ground without their permission. This has won unanimous praise from everyone in Sand Hidden Village. Hi everybody. When the two of them walked over, Yi Kang watched Tsunade candidates training and chatted with them for a few words. Of course, because we didn't know each other well, we talked about nothing more than how were the preparations and did the training go well. Most of they were chatting in the tone of an elder teacher. And when I saw Senju Mayuki and Izumi observing the training of Tsunade candidates, I didn't stop them. I even told them generously that, if I saw any candidate with shortcomings, I hope they can point them out directly. You think too highly of us. Izumi couldn't resist the modesty of this Tomura Jounin, and hurriedly said, we are both just genin, how dare we show off in front of a Jounin. However, Senju Mayuki was not polite to her. After staring at Maki for a while, he couldn't help but ask, why has she been practicing ninja tools? After all, we are our opponents in the third exam, so it is understandable that we are a little concerned. Some surprise flashed across Yi Kang's face, as if he didn't expect that this kid would actually dare to say it, but he still happily called Zenshu over. Maki does have some talent in ninja tools, but I can't teach her the burning release. Having said this, she looked at Senju Mayuki helplessly. The other problem is yours. Senju Mayuki was a little puzzled, and Yi Kang didn't think he was faking it, so he had to explain. You gave everyone such a big surprise in the second exam. We didn't even have a chance to collect information. The only thing we knew was that your ability was ice, and we knew nothing else. In this case, how can we carry out targeted training? Okay. Thinking this, Senju Mayuki walked away a little. Ice armor. Click. In an instant, a thin layer of ice tightly wrapped his whole body, and even his head and eyes could be closed at any time, making him look like a mini version of an armored warrior. Maki, who was wondering why he was called here, immediately widened his eyes, while Yi Kang looked at Senju Mayuki in surprise. What are you doing? She called Maki over simply because she saw that he seemed to shy away from communicating, so she hoped that the two of them could get to know each other, even if they could learn more about his personality. Didn't expect this little guy to show off his abilities so directly. Although it's a bit harsh to say this, the fact is that ordinary ninja tools really have no effect on me. Saying that, Senju Mayuki nodded to Izumi, then opened his arms. Although teachers and students Yi Kang couldn't understand, it was something that was beneficial to Maki anyway, so they closed their mouths and continued reading. Izumi on the other side felt a little uncomfortable, but he was unwilling to refuse Senju Mayuki's request, so he could only snort secretly, jump back under the gaze of Yi Kang's teachers and students, and at the same time, fly out with his hands. 3 black shadows. Ding ding ding. The 3 kunai hit the ground almost at the same time, and fell to the ground almost at the same time. This. Maki was shocked on the spot. She also plays with ninja toys. Of course she can see that the strength of these 3 kunai is definitely not small, but they still failed to cause any damage to the seemingly thin ice armor. So what I have are ropes and net bags. How can I break through his defense? Not only that. See Wei Shen Hei Wu Yin. Art fire escape ho fireball. In the shocked eyes of Yi Kang and Maki, a hot and explosive fireball suddenly hit Senju Mayuki's body. Hey, you two, don't joke about something so dangerous. Yi Kang hurriedly stepped forward to stop it. As a scorching escape ninja, of course she could feel the terrifying temperature contained in that fireball. Who would have thought that at this time Senju Mayuki would throw out an ice kunai and pierce her in front of her body, obviously telling her not to worry. Who under Kwan's insistence, the fireball burned for more than a minute before it was completely extinguished. However, the ice armor did not have any damage, not even a trace of melting, and it was still so shiny. This time Yi Kang was really surprised. Maki was directly half crazy. Brother, are you sent here by monkeys? We are all genin, and they are still throwing darts and kunai. At most, they can use a transformation technique or a substitute technique, which is considered very advanced and impressive. As a result, you have a 360-degree defense without blind spots. How can I let my mother beat this meow? Exclamation mark. Headbutt. Because of its ability, this armor is strong enough, but will not hinder my movements. The voice in the ice armor seemed a bit buzzing, and as he spoke, he bent his arms and stretched his legs to make a few relatively large movements, as if to verify whether he was laying Real tree collapse. JPGY. Did the teacher call me over? I was obviously very happy during the training. That's my defense. After the display, Senju Mayuki cancelled the ice armor. And my offensive method is relatively simple. As he spoke, he took out another ice arrow and showed it to the two teachers and students. Then he focused his gaze and controlled the ice arrow to fly forward, backward, left, and right at such a speed. Especially when I saw the ice arrow penetrated 3 big trees in a row and finally inserted deeply into the stone with a loud bang. The real tree collapsed directly 2.0 up. Seeing the little girl's desperate look, Senju Mayuki hesitated for a moment, but in the end he didn't have the heart to tell her that he could still fly. After all, the purpose of doing this is just to show your abilities and characteristics to your opponents, not to rub the little girl's spirit on the ground directly outside the court. Why are you showing us this? Although he felt sorry for his student, he had good intentions after all. Yi Kang didn't want to, and he didn't have the position to blame him, but he still expressed doubts about his actions. The failure to collect your information is obviously our own problem. Even if you do nothing, no one will blame you. Then won't it be easier for you to win in the third exam? There are indeed some reasons. After pondering for a moment, what he did was certainly not a psychotic episode, but he thought that, since he happened to meet him, and the other party also took the initiative to send out a sincere invitation, as a person with other ideas in his heart, how could he let go of such a good opportunity? Brainwashing is something that needs to be done in small amounts and many times, slowly and gradually, coupled with the cooperation of the top management of Sand Hidden Village. Yi Kang will be his possession sooner or later. First, although we are allies, I think there are still many veteran ninjas who cannot communicate sincerely because of previous wars, but I won't. I came back to Konoha from outside the village. I haven't experienced those war times, and I don't have many relatives in the village. And you are the representative of the new generation of Tsunade village. You have a good personality. You are not the type to bully others. You also have a strong sense of public morality, so I'm willing to take the initiative, to take the first step, to promote a more honest relationship between us. See each other. Unlike the other two little girls, Yi Kang was thinking more about, is this something a child can come up with? As for the second reason, it may sound a bit boastful, but that's really what I think that is. A truly strong man should never be afraid of his opponent becoming stronger. Chapter 73 Chunin Exam Part 3. On August 8th, the third round of the Chunin exams finally arrived. On this day, Konoha village was bustling with people inside and outside, and everyone had a welcoming smile on their face. In fact, starting from 3 or 4 days ago, some famous names and famous nobles from faraway countries have begun to arrive one after another. It's so lively. The villagers of Konoha are also very enthusiastic. Delicious. So delicious. I've never had such delicious food. Konoha's nightlife and entertainment are also very rich. Hearing the rave reviews from guests from all over the world, the third Hokage was so happy in the office. The third exam hasn't even started yet, and this wave of cultural and impression output alone is already worth half of the ticket price. Oh, yes, I must mention this, in order not to dampen the interest of guests from all over the world. Danzo and Orochimaru, the two trivial men, were strictly ordered not to go out during the grand occasion. You are not allowed to show up in front of any guests. The reason is nothing more than that these two guys look too gloomy and do not match the image of Konoha village. Wow, the third exam was held in a circular venue with a high wall on the outside and a competition venue in the middle. There were some trees planted everywhere inside. There are protruding horizontal towers arranged above the high wall, which are already filled with spectators from various countries and villages. Among them are high-level officials and nobles from various countries, as well as eyes sent by various ninja forces. It can even be said with certainty that there are spies from some hostile countries such as Iwagakure, Kirigakure, and Kumogakure. These people gathered together and waited silently. They all wanted to know which ninja village would be the one that would support the ninja world in the future. As for the ordinary spectators, it is much simpler. They have traveled thousands of miles to come here just for the excitement, and they can just make noise and cheer loudly for their favorite players. Of course, in addition to them, the villagers of Konoha village are also very enthusiastic. Many villagers spontaneously walked among these crowds to introduce and popularize science to them. Hinata, the big clans such as Uchiha and Inagacho each occupied a seat. Although they did not communicate much with each other, under this grand occasion, everyone had uncontrollable smiles and joy on their faces. At the VIP seats facing the examination room, the 3rd Hokage and the 4th Kazekage sat on the chairs as representatives of the two largest forces. Looking around the venue, seeing such a noisy and heated scene, while feeling envious in his heart, the 4th Kazekage couldn't help but recall the report Yi Kang sent back some time ago. Konoha village is very lively and the villagers are very enthusiastic. Many people know about the country of wind and Tsunade village, but when asked, no one cares about where Tsunade village is, because they live very happily here. Every villager supports the 3rd Hokage. In addition to her hatred for Kirigakure village, Yi Kang is now a relatively pure girl. What Senju Mayuki said at the training ground that day really shocked her. In her excitement, she couldn't help but send a report letter to the 4th Kazekage that night. As the peak popularity of the new generation of young people in Tsunade village, Yi Kang's words undoubtedly carry a lot of weight. Coupled with all the hustle and bustle that I saw after arriving in Konoha village and then thinking about my own Tsunade village, I have to rely on him, the 4th Kazekage, to collect sand gold and sell it to pay off debts. Some old stubborns in the village have never left home in their lives, and they always feel that Konoha village is trying to show favor to them for something. It's all loud. Those old guys never thought that Tsunade village was almost synonymous with backwardness in other people's eyes. What the hell was worth worrying about? We must seize this opportunity for Konoha to show his kindness. At this moment, the 4th Kazekage had only one thought in his mind. Things must change this time when we go back, otherwise the gap between Tsunade and Konoha will only get wider and wider. Thinking of this, the 4th Kazekage couldn't bear it anymore and took the initiative to chat with the 3rd Hokage. I heard that your candidate named Senju Mayuki has done a lot to promote the alliance between the two villages. Oh, does Mr. Kazekage also know about that brat? The 3rd Hokage immediately burst into laughter upon hearing this. Things that even the Kazekage knew. How could he, the Hokage, not know? To be honest, he really loves and is more and more satisfied with Senju Mayuki now. He is strong enough, has a good brain, and has great potential. He also cares about his friends around him, and he doesn't have any weird habits. Emphasis added. The most important thing is that at this age, you already know how to take the initiative to pay for the image of the village. Naruto. Such a good candidate must be the future Hokage. Repeat it again. This game has no rules at all and will continue until one of the parties admits defeat. The examiner in the 3rd session was a ninja I had never seen before, and he always gave people a condescending feeling when he spoke. However, when I judge that the game can no longer continue, I will call a stop. Do you all understand? After saying that, seeing that none of the 12 candidates had objections, the examiner looked up. When he saw the 3rd Hokage's acquiescence, he immediately waved his right hand at the candidates. Except for the contestants in the first group, the rest of the candidates will leave immediately. 10 candidates, including Senju Mayuki, quickly left the venue. The 3rd round of the Chunin examination, the first group of opponents, Konoha Ninja Village Genin. Ji Liang vs. Konoha Ninja Village Genin. Sakura Kiteru. The examiner looked around and found that neither party was in any condition and immediately swung his hand. Start now. Swoosh. As soon as the words fell, the two candidates jumped back and retreated a certain distance almost at the same time, and in unusual tacit understanding, they took out their kunai and assumed a fighting posture. HUI, as teammates you and I both know each other's strength. There's no way you can beat me. Why don't you admit defeat now? The first person to speak was a guy with some acne on his face. He looked about 14 or 15 years old at most. His opponent Sakura Teru was also about the same age, but the expression on his face was not as calm as his, and after hearing such arrogant words, he did not speak back, but pursed his lips and clenched the kunai more firmly. You guy, it seems you have to suffer some hardships for me to accept the reality. Seeing his reaction, Ji Liang couldn't help but feel some displeasure and coldness on his face. As a crane tailgater, Don't you still know why you are standing on this field today? I admit that my talent is not as good as yours. As if being stimulated by the word cranetail, eyeing Shu, who finally couldn't help but replied, but I don't think talent determines everything. So I practice hard every day, and I have been working hard to catch up with you, just hoping that one day I can get your approval. Perhaps he had been suppressing it for too long. The more eyeing Shu who talked, the more excited he became. In the end, he screamed and rushed towards Jiliang. And Ji Liang here didn't underestimate eyeing Shu who, as he said, and at the same time he also started running around the perimeter. Sakura Teru continued to shoot shurikens and kunai from behind to block Jiliang's direction, forcing him to the corner against the wall. Come on, Jiliang. I've been looking forward to this game for a long time. Come and have a proper fight with me. In the end, one of the two people stood against the wall, and the other was approaching with a trembling hand holding the kunai. I have made up my mind. Today I must let you see my hard work over the past year, and I must let you recognize me as a teammate. However, just when he was letting out the accumulated depression in his chest, he didn't realize that a black shadow suddenly appeared in the shade of the tree behind him, and when Sakura was most excited, he quietly put a kunai on his neck. Is it? A cold and familiar voice came from behind, and Yingshu Hui was immediately startled, as if a basin of cold water had been poured on her. What? Look at the opposite side again. Puff Ji Liang, who had never spoken again since the beginning, turned into a burst of white smoke and disappeared. Clone. When? Is this your effort? It's really disappointing. Listening to the voice behind him, Sakura Hui's heart almost collapsed. Why didn't you see when he used his clone? I thought it would be a fun and enjoyable game where my teammates would see their efforts and recognize themselves, and in the end everyone would walk out of the field happily. I didn't expect it to end before it even started. Then what does my persistent and hard work for more than a year mean? You know what? This is what I hate most about you. Ji Liang's voice did not hide his dissatisfaction and anger. If you are not strong enough, you can train. If you are not confident, I can grow with you. I have never said anything about this. But why did you? Obviously we have graduated a few years ago and are no longer children. But you are still so careless and unwary to this day. What do you think a ninja is? Yingshu Hui was about to retort, but Ji Liang didn't give him another chance to speak and knocked him unconscious with a hand knife. Ji Liang. The game is over. The first winner, Ji Liang. Chapter 74. Sure enough X. Wow, this is the end? What? This is all? We are here to see a fight, not a joke. The audience on the high platform immediately started buzzing with dissatisfaction, and even some excited ones began to shout, "This game doesn't count. Let them play again." Of course, these are just ordinary spectators. Most of them are just watching the excitement, and few of them can really see what needs more attention in this battle. Just as the first scene, this kind of development and ending is indeed something that many people did not expect. Even in the eyes of the ninjas from various factions, the only interesting thing about this first game was that Jiliang's control of timing and opponent's character was relatively good. As for Yingshu Hui's failure, almost everyone shook their heads secretly. As a ninja who has graduated for several years, it is really hard to accept that he is still so naive and careless. The candidates for the second session are entering now. Call along with a whirlwind. Mizusawa Hirokichi appeared on the field carrying a huge fan. The examiner looked at him and then shouted towards the audience, "Hyuga Takuma, get out of here quickly. Come on in the stands." Hyuga Takuma nodded to his teammates, then quickly entered the stadium using the teleportation technique, and soon stood opposite Mizusawa Hirokichi. Do I need to repeat the rules of the game again? The examiner looked at both sides, then waved his hand neatly. Then, the second group of the third test, Hyuga Takuma from Konoha Ninja Village vs Mizusawa Hirokichi from Suna Ninja Village, starts now. SHHHHH. As soon as he finished speaking, Mizusawa Hirokichi jumped back 3 times and exited Leoion. Then he slammed the giant fan on the ground and said to Hyuga Takuma with a smile, "I know that you Hyuga clan are all proficient in close combat, and I major in wind release ninjutsu. As long as I don't let you get close, there is nothing you can do against me. Call." As soon as these words came out, they immediately aroused dissatisfaction from the audience. They had said many times that they were here to watch the fun. If one or two of them were playing incomprehensible games, then they would still be watching a ball. However, having made it this far, Mizusawa Hirokichi is certainly not someone who would disrupt his rhythm just because of such external factors. Seeing that Hinata Takuma was also unmoved by his words, he raised his fan and swept it with a wind blade. Whoosh! An invisible blade of wind blew diagonally towards Hinata Takuma, and even the ground it passed was cut with a deep groove, which is enough to show the powerful attack power of this move. However, in the face of this attack, Hyuga Takuma still did not move. Then, just when the wind blade was approaching, and the audience couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, Hinata Takuma suddenly opened his eyes and turned sideways slightly, and then saw the wind blade flying past his body. It passed by and finally disappeared completely after cutting off a big tree. TSK Byakugan's powers of observation are really tricky. Although I have long heard that the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan is particularly good at observation, but to be able to make his movements so precise, it is obvious that that guy has also put in a lot of hard work. But Hinata Takuma here did not wait for him to attack again. He took advantage of Mizusawa Hirokichi's frown and rushed over at full speed. Damn. Although he was reluctant, the wind blade alone was obviously unable to pose a threat to the opponent, so Mizusawa Hiroki had no choice but to use a trick that consumed more chakra. With a crash sound, the giant paper fan opened to its maximum limit. Wind release. Kameta no Jutsu. The crazy storm howled and blew forward. The airflow brought up along the wave and swept the sand and dust on the ground into the sky, dyeing the invisible wind release ninjutsu into a sandstorm visible to the naked eye. I don't believe you can dodge this move. Consuming a large amount of chakra at once, Mizusawa Hirokichi was slightly out of breath, but when he saw the effect of his move, he still showed a satisfied smile. Feng Dun's attack power ranks first among the 5 attributes. And this Kamameta move is already the strongest move he can use now. It not only has a large attack range, but also has great lethality. He believed that, as long as the opponent was still a genin, it would be impossible for him to withstand this move. Who not only inside the stadium, the airflow caused by the storm even hit the stands, so that ordinary spectators had to cover their eyes, mouth, and nose in a hurry. However, not a single person in the audience expressed dissatisfaction with this experience, and even became more excited after the airflow passed and became smaller. Right, that is it. Fight harder. This is the fight we want to see. In the field, the crazy sandstorm lasted for nearly half a minute before gradually disappearing. And when the dust in the sky gradually dispersed, everyone could clearly see Hinata Takuma with his arms protecting his head. It's just that the originally decent and slim-fitting white clothes had been cut into tattered rags, and shocking blood oozed from the exposed skin. Mizusawa Hiroki was relieved, but he still didn't care. Instead, he began to extract chakra again, and said sarcastically, "I'm showing mercy this time. I advise you to admit defeat quickly, otherwise I won't show mercy next time." However, before he could finish his words, Hyuga Takuma actually accelerated towards him again, running towards him. Cut. Mizusawa Hirokichi spat and muttered, "Originally, I wanted to save you some face for the sake of our alliance, but in this case, don't blame me." Then he once again condensed 3 points more chakra than before, then raised the giant paper fan, and waved it hard forward. Wind release. Kameta no Jutsu. Call. A bigger and more violent hurricane takes shape in an instant. The airflow caused this time even caused the audience on the left and right to cover their eyes with their arms. Ugh. A painful groan suddenly came from the endless dust. After hearing this, Mizusawa Hiroki's lips immediately turned up. "I've reminded you, even if you die from this move, you can't blame me." Zyro Zenryu, Takuma, he. In the stands, not only Izumi, but also many spectators from the Leaf Village couldn't help but feel anxious when they saw this scene, secretly praying that nothing serious would happen to that young man. Just watching the fun, but that doesn't mean they want to see the young man in their village being killed. Father, that man. In the seat of the Hyuga clan, the 3-year-old Hyuga Neji also looked at his father next to him nervously. Although they didn't have much social contact, they were still from the same clan, and they kept hearing his name mentioned recently, so Neji was still a little concerned. Do not worry. Hinata Hisashi looked at him with his Byakugan, and then gave his son a slightly proud smile. Takuma is a student who has been specially trained by the clan leader and elders. How could he lose so easily? You will know as you read on. Oh. Neji hasn't opened his Byakugan yet, so he can't see the scene in the sand. But when his father said this, he immediately calmed down. Although I can't see it myself, since my father said so, it must be like this. Inside, the storm this time was stronger and lasted longer. However, after all, it was just a ninjutsu used by a genin, and it gradually dissipated after less than a minute. When the dust in the sky dissipated, the audience in the stands suddenly let out an uproar. Wow, is he dead? What are you doing in Konoha? Go and save people. Right in the center of the storm, a bloody figure was lying there motionless. Hello, examiner. Mizusawa Hirokichi also frowned. Of course, he didn't want to cause anyone's life on other people's territory. Upon seeing this, he immediately shouted to the examiner, "What are you waiting for? Can I already be declared the winner?" However, what he didn't expect was that at this time, the examiner, who looked a little arrogant, actually smiled. "No. Varied. You are already within my attack range." Suddenly, a weak but firm voice came from behind, which immediately frightened Mizusawa Hirokichi. When? How can it be? As if responding to his thoughts, the figure originally lying on the ground turned into light smoke and disappeared, leaving only a freshly dug hole in the place. He actually used his clone to block my sight, and the main body took the opportunity to dig me out from the ground. Gossip. 2 palms. Clap. 2 extremely fast attacks instantly hit Mizusawa Hiroki's acupuncture points. Ugh. 4 palms. Clap. 8 palms. Clap clap clap. One after another, swift and sharp attacks continued to hit Mizusawa Hirokichi. Ooh. The audience in the stands was almost excited. This is what they want to see. A fist 2-pound fight. 16 palms. Clap clap clap. Ha ha. After 16 palm strikes, Hirokichi Mizusawa could hardly stand, and Hinata Takuma had to breathe heavily. With his current strength, being able to finish these 16 palms in a row is already the limit, and the injuries he suffered just now, in order to create an illusion that was enough to deceive others, were not fake. Cough cough cough. 16 important acupuncture points in his body were sealed. Coupled with the attack of chakra entering his body, Mizusawa Hirokichi almost lost the ability to resist in an instant. But before falling down, he still managed to look at Hinata Takuma. Cough, cough. Is this the Hyuga clan soft fist? Sure enough. Before he finished speaking, he fell down with a thud. The medical ninjas who had been waiting at the side immediately came on stage at the examiner's signal and carried both contestants onto stretchers. The second game is over. The winner is Hyuga Takuma. Chapter 75 Group 3, Izumi Uchiha vs Tokakan. It is good. Ha ha ha, fantastic. That's it. Have all the players behind you seen it? Just play like this. The candidates in the second round were quickly carried off the stage, and the audience on the high platform did not hold back their enthusiasm and gave sincere applause to these 2 young men who brought a wonderful showdown. This guy Takuma, he used such a thrilling strategy, which made me think he must have no choice. After all, he can't crush him in terms of speed, so he can only find ways to divert his opponent's attention. Senju Mayuki could tell that the injuries on Hinata Takuma's body only looked scary and were weak due to heavy bleeding. In fact, they were far from breaking the bones. "You are really terrible." The children of Konoha village on the rostrum, the 4th Kazakage, couldn't help but praise him sincerely. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, Hyuga Takuma is suspected of taking advantage of his opponent's sympathy in the rules of the game. But for ninjas like them, everything is still unknown, as long as it's not the last moment. Mizusawa Hirokichi will lose because of this, which only shows that his ninja training is not enough, and he has not truly understood the meaning of the word ninja. In the seat of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hisashi always had his hands crossed on his chest. No matter whether he saw Hyuga Takuma injured or victorious, his expression never changed in any way. It was only when the two sides came off that only a few people around him heard the patriarch whisper to himself, "Sure enough, my physical skills are still not up to standard, and I need to continue to practice more. Look, what I said is right, Niji." Not far away, Hyuga Niji listened to his father's words, but his eyes were staring at the hole drilled by Hyuga to humor in novelty. "Ninja, it turns out that you can fight like this." The third match is between Uchiha Raizumi of Konoha Ninja Village and Tochikan of Tsunade Ninja Village. The two players are entering now. Shasha, a whirlwind mixed with wind and sand, gently rolled by, and Tochikan from Hidden Sand Village appeared in front of the examiner. "Be careful." Well, don't worry, Quan here didn't wait for the examiner's urging and came to the opposite side of Tochikan in a few seconds. Due to the special climate of the Land of Wind, the ninjas of Tsunagakure Village mostly wear cooler clothes. And this candidate named Tochikan went even further. He wore nothing on his upper body except 2 long arm gloves, directly exposing his tight muscles. This man is very strong. Perhaps to prevent the wind and sand, Tochikan's neck was tightly wrapped by a mask and a turban, with only a pair of eyes exposed in the middle that made people feel that this person was very fierce. Not only was he obviously older in age and height, but just from the aura displayed by this person, Quan felt that this person was not an easy character to deal with. "Thanks to that guy Mizusawa Hirokichi." Tochikan suddenly spoke, but the voice behind the mask seemed a little buzzing. "Originally, we all thought that your team's victory was all due to Senju Mayuki alone, but now I know that the big families in Konoha Village are really bad, even if they are just children." She didn't make any response to his speech. She just looked at the 2 metal claws fixed on the opponent's gloves and silently took out her own weapon from her waist, bi-monthly. In fact, Senju Mayuki suggested a name with spring in it at first, such as Kingquin, Shanquin, Longquin, Bayota Spring, etc. It can be regarded as echoing the name of her master. However, Quan, who has always been obedient, was surprisingly determined this time. He didn't even consider a single punctuation mark for his proposal and just named it Twin Moons, adding that it looked very similar to the weapon. "Do the 2 contestants have any questions to ask? I have heard many people say that the power of the Sharingan is terrifying when talking about the Uchiha clan." When the examiner made the final inquiry, Tochikan raised his right hand towards Quan and clenched his fist. The 3 sharp claw blades flashed with a dazzling cold light. "Let me see how much Uchiha strength a girl as young as you can unleash. Start." Swoosh, ping ping. The 2 figures disappeared at the same time. The twin moons and the 2 claw blades collided with each other in the air and retreated at the touch of a touch. However, she was still too young after all, and Quan was far unable to compare with Tochikan in terms of strength. After just one collision, she felt that her hands were shaken to the point of numbness. "What's wrong? Where's your Sharingan?" Of course Tochikan can also feel this, or in other words, he has figured out the gap between them through this encounter. Quan still didn't answer, but clenched Shuangayu harder. "Hey, why don't you say anything?" Tochikan slowly straightened up and said something like an ultimatum. "You are definitely no match for me now. If you don't want to lose, use all your strength." Swoosh, ping ping, ping ding ding ding. The 2 people were fighting together again in an instant, and the 4 weapons collided in the air like lightning, creating sparks one after another. Seeing such a tense and exciting battle, the audience in the stands even held their breath nervously for a moment, fearing that their breathing louder would disrupt the rhythm of both parties. Ping ping ding 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 boom. Well, Quan, who was in the middle of a fierce fight, was suddenly kicked out by Tochikan with a leg sweep and a whirlwind kick. Bang bang bang. After landing, the young body hit the ground repeatedly several times and did not stop until it rolled a long way away. Cough, cough, cough. Even though the pain from being kicked in the chest was extremely painful, Quan quickly gritted her teeth and got up again, because she knew that it was only an exam name, but for these candidates, it was tantamount to the first war in their lives. And most importantly, she doesn't want to. We can't lag behind him in a place like this. And at this short moment, when he fell down and got up again, Tochikan, who succeeded in a hit, no longer waited for the referee's announcement in the distance like Mizusawa Hirokichi in the previous game, but almost didn't stop for a moment. He followed up with his claws extended. Ended. The emotionless voice approached instantly. "It's now. Sharingan." The beautiful pupils instantly turned bloodthirsty scarlet in the eyes of Tochikan, who just wanted to end the exam as soon as possible. He only saw Quan coughing violently. He only had time to raise his head and glanced, and was cut in half by his own claw blade. Wrong. Just as the claw blade passed through Quan's body, Tochikan was horrified to find that the coughing opponent suddenly disappeared into the air like a phantom. Doppelganger, phantom, or illusion. When call out, a cold light flashed across Tochikan's neck. Dang dang dang, a head fell to the ground and rolled a few times. Finally, his eyes were focused on the body that was still maintaining an attacking posture. However, the body had no head, and the broken neck was still spraying hot blood like a fountain. That's my body. I'm dead. Aha. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. Just like a person who has just been rescued after falling into the water. Tochikan suddenly came back to his senses and gasped for air when he saw a shining crescent moon approaching. For a moment, there was no time to think. It was too late to draw back his hand. Tochikan had no choice but to grit his teeth, lower his head forward, and use the forehead protector to block this life-threatening attack. Chang. The sound of Jin's roar stopped at the first touch. After winning the chance to buffer, Tochikan immediately retreated more than 10 meters away in a series of swish. Ha ha. While breathing heavily, he stared at Quan in the distance, who was still coughing and clutching his chest. Tochikan's face was no longer as relaxed as before, and when he looked at Quan's eyes, he didn't know when he had turned an unusually scarlet color. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.